Chapter 2441. The grand and boundless vow quickly condensed into a gigantic ship at the edge of the Sea of Bitterness. It was incomparably mighty, just like a battleship. QL-11. As soon as the gigantic ship appeared, it immediately caused the Sea of Bitterness to shake and set off huge waves. It was a spectacular sight. My vow is actually so grand. The ship condensed is actually so amazing. It surpasses everyone, including Di Xuan. Su Fang was also very shocked. Qi Mian, Eli, Chu Bingyan, Huang Lingyao and the others all swore to become peerless powerhouses. Even Di Xuan's vow was to become a transcendent being. Su Fang, on the other hand, wanted to create his own world. How could the others be as bold as he was? Moreover, he wanted to protect the myriad worlds. With such a vow and such strong confidence, the ship condensed was naturally extremely amazing and surpassed everyone else. Just as Su Fang was about to use his body movement technique to board the ship, an invisible force wrapped around him and sent him directly onto the ship. Boom, boom, boom. The gigantic ship crushed the waves and automatically sailed towards the depths of the Sea of Bitterness. Wherever it went, it set off huge waves that swept towards the surroundings. Its power was vast and incomparably shocking. Qi Mian was the first to make a vow to enter the Sea of Bitterness. However, he was quickly overtaken. Not only was he overtaken by Chu Bingyan and Qian Gang, but even underworld judge Goli was quickly left behind. The only ones who could not surpass him were the three successors of Mo Tiangong. The proud and arrogant Qi Mian was naturally furious that he was overtaken time and time again. Looking behind him, he still did not see Su Fang's shadow. Qi Mian finally found some balance in his heart. At least that big goblin Yuan Li has been left behind by me. He has great affinity with Buddha. Unexpectedly, less than half a day later, a gigantic ship broke through the waves and arrived. Even though it was thousands of miles away, the waves that it set off caused the ship under Qi Mian to sway. That's Yuan Li. How is it possible? How can the ship condensed by his vow be so huge? Qi Mian was completely stunned. Rumble! The huge waves rolled up by Su Fang's ship swept over, and Qi Mian's ship began to shake violently. Damn it, big goblin Yuan Li, how dare you harm me? Qi Mian's boat was too small, so it was instantly overturned by the huge waves. He struggled in the Sea of Bitterness and screamed miserably. Finally, he sank into the sea. Soon, they reached the depths of the Sea of Misery. Gusts of wind swept over, blowing on Su Fang's body. The gale didn't move Su Fang's clothes in the slightest, but it directly blew on his soul, causing his will and Tao heart to face great pressure and test. Within the raging winds was the power of karma. It was also known as the wind of karma by the Buddhist sect. As long as there was a cause for everything that happened in one's life, there would definitely be an effect. The winds above the sea of sufferings were the karma that had been planted in one's life. They formed a power that had to bear all sorts of karma at this moment. Even if one had an enormous vow, one could only endure the onslaught of the karmic winds in order to cross the Sea of Bitterness and reach the other shore. Sailing on the Sea of Sufferings wasn't just a test of the karmic winds. The deeper Su Fang went into the depths of the Sea of Sufferings, the more he experienced what the Sea of Sufferings was. Within the aura of the world, there were all sorts of sufferings. The sufferings of birth, old age, illness, death, resentment, separation, unrequited love, and the sufferings of the five essences. Although Su Fang had the protection of the giant boat, he still couldn't escape these tests. All sorts of painful feelings surged from the bottom of his heart, making him feel as if he was soaking in bitter water. Su Fang cultivated the life-shrinking technique, and had the heaven-defying ability to control his own fate and karma. Moreover, Su Fang had also merged with a small part of the fruit of sin in the divine prison of heaven's law. Karma existed in the unseen world. The more one killed, the greater the shackles one would be subjected to, and the greater the rejection from the heavenly Tao. Therefore, it was difficult to reach the peak. and the function of the fruit of sin was to wash away karma. Moreover, in the inner world of the disillusionment heart-killing mirror in the Golden Rainbow King world, Su Fang had merged with his inner demons, and his Tao heart was close to flawless. In addition, the purple Qi Dharma spirit had just transformed, causing Su Fang to possess supreme luck. With so many fortunes and abilities, Su Fang's Tao heart and will had become incomparably sturdy. His ability to resist the corrosion of the karmic winds, as well as his tenacity to endure pain, far surpassed that of others. No matter how the karmic winds blew, no matter how much pain he suffered, Su Fang's Tao heart remained unmoved. His body was like a nail nailed to the bow of the ship, towering and unmoving. Not long after, Su Fang surpassed Eli, Chu Bingyan, Mo Tiangong, Qian Gang, and finally Huang Lingyao, Dixuan, and the others. Seeing Su Fang's giant boat, everyone was incomparably shocked. A mere big goblin can actually condense such an astonishing giant boat. To be able to activate the power of the Ksitigarbha Buddha's world, what is his vow? Could the Ksitigarbha be biased on purpose? This big goblin Yuanli was already so heaven-defying in the lifeless wilderness. Now that he's in the sea of misery, he's still so heaven-defying? Dixuan's vow is to transcend heaven and earth. What is this big goblin Yuan Li's vow? How can he surpass me? Apart from being shocked, there were those who were doubtful and those who were jealous. Seeing Su Fang's towering and unmoving appearance, everyone felt that it was even more inconceivable. As they continued to go deeper, gradually, some people found it difficult to endure. Some of the boats were too small and could not withstand the waves of the sea of misery. Their boats were overturned and sank into the sea of misery. Some of them could not withstand the impact of the karmic winds and the aura of the sea of misery. Their Tao hearts and wills collapsed, and their boats broke as well, falling into the sea of misery. After falling into the sea of misery, these people were directly sent out of the Ksitigarbha Buddha's world. Chi Mian was, of course, the first to be sent out of the Ksitigarbha Buddha's world. Although he was not injured at all, and had crossed the sea of misery this time, he had obtained quite a bit of fortune from it. After the baptism of the Buddha's light, coupled with the tempering of the sea of misery, his Tao heart had become even stronger. It would naturally be of great help to his future cultivation. However, Chi Mian was furious. Big Goblin Yuanli, you will fall into my hands sooner or later. I will pull out your tendons and skin you alive. Following that, Eli, Chu Bingyan, Huang Lingyao, and the others, as well as Mo Tiangong and his 3 successors, as well as underworld Judge Goli, were sent out of the mirage of Buddha's light one after another, appearing above the Nether River in the periphery. Some of them were overjoyed. Clearly, they had obtained an unexpected fortune or powerful Buddhist treasures. There were also people who were greatly disappointed. Huang Lingyao was half happy and half worried. Clearly, she had obtained a lot of fortune in the sea of misery. However, she did not obtain the crimson spirit dew, which disappointed her greatly. After half a month, the Buddha's light flashed on the barrier outside the mirage of Buddha's light, and Dixuan was also sent out. Lord Dixuan, you also failed to reach the other side of the sea of misery? Chi Mian, Eli, and the others all gathered around. Dixuan shook his head and smiled bitterly. How can it be so easy to cross the sea of misery? I did not struggle to the end in the sea of misery. I did not even see the shadow of the other side that Ksitigarbha Buddha spoke of. Then he continued, however, the fortune I obtained in the sea of misery this time is not small. With this fortune, the risk of entering the 9th underworld this time was not in vain. Although Dixuan was a king god, he had a peerless master who could contend with a venerable sovereign. The fortune he spoke of was most likely the opportunity to become a supreme venerable. For anyone, it was a great fortune. Everyone congratulated. Congratulations, Lord Dixuan. Dixuan's divine light swept over everyone. He said in surprise, Great Elder Yuan Li and Qian Gang did not come out? Qi Mian took the opportunity to provoke. Qian Gang is a Buddhist cultivator. Naturally, he lasted a long time in the sea of misery. He may even be specially taken care of by Ksitigarbha Buddha. That big goblin Yuan Li. I really don't know what kind of ability he has to be valued so much by Ksitigarbha Buddha. Dixuan smiled faintly as if he did not care. Su Fang did not know how long he had been sailing in the sea of misery. In front of him was still the vast sea of misery. There was no sign of the other side. The karmic wind became more and more violent. All kinds of great pain made Su Fang feel as if he was completely drowning in bitter water. The sea of misery is boundless. Turn back and the shore is at hand. Su Fang, do you want to turn back? When Su Fang's consciousness became blurred, Ksitigarbha Buddha's voice sounded in his mind. Turn back? Never. Su Fang responded decisively. As time passed, the tests that Su Fang endured had already exceeded his limit. The sea of misery is boundless. Turn back and the shore is at hand. Su Fang, do you want to turn back? I, Su Fang, will never give up. Ksitigarbha Buddha asked again and again, and Su Fang responded with the same answer again and again. In the end, Su Fang's consciousness was about to collapse. Only the last trace of persistence in his heart was holding on. The sea of misery is boundless. Turn back and the shore is at hand. Su Fang, do you want to turn back? Never. Get lost. Su Fang answered angrily. In the end, his mind turned black and he completely lost consciousness. Su Fang's consciousness fell into a deep sleep. It was as if he had drifted through endless time and space in the boundless darkness. He did not know how much time had passed. An astonishing Buddhist light suddenly lit up in the depths of his mind, dispelling the boundless darkness. Su Fang's consciousness was jolted awake, and he suddenly opened his eyes. Only then did he realize that he was in a valley. There was a thatched hut in front of him. An old Buddhist man wearing a cloth cassock was sitting cross-legged on the ground. This old man did not have any breath of life. He was not a living body. He was condensed from a strong will and Buddhist light. However, this Buddhist old man's deep eyes contained wisdom. When he looked at Su Fang could not help but feel relaxed, as if he had let go of everything. The various tribulations and pain he had experienced in the sea of bitterness rapidly disappeared under the old man's gaze. In the end, they were all gone. Su Fang asked, "You are Ksitigarbha Buddha?" The old Buddhist man smiled and said, "I am just the will of the world left by Ksitigarbha Buddha. I was left behind to fulfill his last obsession in this universe." Su Fang asked curiously, "Then where did the original body of Ksitigarbha Buddha go?" After the great war of the immortals and demons in ancient times, the Supreme Master of Buddhism led many Buddhist experts to the Buddhist kingdom universe. Only a few Buddhist disciples stayed in this universe. So the Buddhist sect left. They were not destroyed by the Buddhist sect. Why did the Buddhist sect leave? Chapter 2442. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva continued, "You've obtained my Paramitha Buddha relic, and my consciousness is about to disappear. Let's make it short." Paramitha Buddha relic? What was that? Su Fang was stunned. "When did I obtain your Paramitha Buddha relic?" Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva smiled and said, "Look at your divine aperture." Su Fang inspected his divine aperture. He saw a golden rice-like object floating in the depths of his divine aperture. Although it was only the size of a rice-like object, it emitted a shocking Buddhist light. Su Fang thought of the Buddhist light that appeared in his mind before he woke up. This rice-sized object contained a mysterious and ethereal power. This power did not belong to any power of the heavenly axiom. It was a supreme power that transcended the heavens and the earth and transcended life and death. Su Fang asked in astonishment, "This is Supreme Buddha's Paramitha Buddha Sarira?" That's a relic that I condensed from my essence and the power of transcendence when I reconstructed my Buddha body when I transcended. In the netherworld, other than the Son of the Celestial Lord, I'm the strongest. I have the power to transcend life and death. The relic that I condensed when I transcended the heavens and the earth naturally contains the power to transcend life and death. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva said slowly. How do you transcend the heavens and the earth? You need to sever your karma with the heavens and the earth, and then be reborn after death. You cultivate the supreme heavenly axiom. Although you have the realm of transcendence, you don't have the cultivation of transcendence. Even if you succeed in transcending the heavens and the earth, can you be reborn? The chances of you being reborn will not be more than 50%. My Paramitha Buddha relic can help you transcend life and death, but will it make you reborn? The chances of you being reborn will increase by about 20%. I can't say more about the specifics. Otherwise, I'll leave you with shackles. When you truly transcend, you'll naturally understand. Su Fang was extremely shocked. At the same time, he had a strong feeling that the Paramitha Sarira of the Ksitigarbha Buddha had increased his chances of becoming an overgod by 30%, not 20% as he had said. With the 4 elephants seal, the purple cloud Dharma spirit, the heavenly secret life shrinking technique, his comprehension of the Advent life reversal scripture, and the addition of the Ksitigarbha Buddha's Sarira, Su Fang was at least 90% confident that he could become a lord. His ascension to become a chief god meant that he would transcend. What kind of treasure was Ksitigarbha Buddha's Sarira? It could actually help people transcend the heavens and earth? Not to mention helping others transcend, even the advancement of an emperor master was not something that could be helped by external forces. The Sarira of Ksitigarbha Buddha could actually help Su Fang transcend, which made Su Fang feel incredulous. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva stared at the Su Fang. You have to remember, don't forget your vow. If you go against it, not only will my Sarira not be able to help you, it will also form a shackle on you. Su Fang nodded and said, How can I go against the vow that I made from my heart? If that's the case, even if Lord Buddha's Sarira does not shackle my cultivation, it will still be difficult for me to progress in my cultivation. At the same time, he was also puzzled. I failed the test of the Sea of Sufferings. Why did Lord Buddha still give me a Sarira? Ksitigarbha Buddha smiled slightly. You didn't fail, you just didn't succeed. The Sea of Sufferings is boundless. Unless one transcends, no one can reach the other shore. With your vow and Taoist heart, if you have enough strength, it will be easy for you to reach the other shore. Therefore, you have passed my test this time. Su Fang rubbed his hands and said embarrassedly, Lord Buddha, since I have passed the test, then the Crimson Spirit Dew. I have already prepared it for you. Ksitigarbha Buddha opened his right hand, and 3 balls of Buddha's light floated out from his palm. Within the Buddha's light, there were 3 drops of black dew. Su Fang realized that Ksitigarbha Buddha's figure had clearly become blurry. Obviously, it was because he had lost the Paramitha Sarira and was about to dissipate. QL 11-inch take it. Ksitigarbha Buddha waved his hand, and the 3 balls of Buddha's light floated in front of Su Fang. Su Fang was instantly overjoyed. He absorbed all the balls of Buddha's light into his body, and then sealed them with the power of the world of Yin and Yang. Thank you, Lord Buddha. Su Fang knelt down and thanked him. He was originally full of respect for Ksitigarbha Buddha. After receiving such a great benefit this time, he naturally thanked him sincerely. You don't have to thank me. On the contrary, I should be thanking you. Ksitigarbha Buddha smiled slightly, and his figure became more and more blurry. Su Fang was stunned. Thank me? Back then, I made a vow that as long as the netherworld is not empty, I will not transcend. However, the decree of the Supreme Powerhouse of Buddhism gave me a greater mission, so I had no choice but to choose to transcend. Although it was a helpless action, it was also a violation of my vow. Therefore, I condensed the Paramitha Buddha's Sarira. If this world is destroyed, my mirage kingdom of Buddha's light will appear and protect some humans and life forms. With the help of the Paramitha Buddha's Sarira, they can leave this world and universe. When Ksitigarbha Buddha said this, Su Fang already understood. The reason why Buddhism left was because they had already predicted that the heavenly Tao would be destroyed. At the same time, Su Fang admired Ksitigarbha Buddha even more. He had already left, but he still did not forget his original vow. He left behind the Paramitha Buddha's Sarira in an attempt to leave behind the last hope for humans and other life forms. Although Ksitigarbha Buddha had transcended, removing the Paramitha Buddha's Sarira would definitely cause great damage to his vitality. Among those supreme powerhouses, who could do this? Even the supreme imperial people tried their best to save the myriad of worlds, but their ultimate goal was only to maintain the power of the number one divine race in the myriad of worlds. I didn't expect you to integrate with the supreme spiritual treasure called the Purple Chi Dharma Spirit outside the Netherworld River and shake the world and universe. Therefore, I saw hope from you. That's why I appeared in the mirage kingdom of Buddha's light and led you here. To you, obtaining my Paramitha Buddha's Sarira is a supreme fortune. However, to me, you are the one who helped me fulfill my vow. Therefore, I am the one who profited this time. Haha. Ksitigarbha Buddha chuckled. He was actually joking with Su Fang. I still have one last concern. That is the declining Buddhism. That Qiangang is not bad. I will pass on everything in the mirage kingdom of Buddha's light to him. When the path of reincarnation is restored one day, he will be the overseer of the netherworld. Finally, the only hope of the myriad of worlds. Perhaps one day you and I will meet in the Buddha's universe. Ksitigarbha Buddha nodded and smiled. His body quickly turned into nothingness and finally disappeared without a trace. From this moment on, there was no more Ksitigarbha Buddha in the myriad of worlds. Su Fang knelt down deeply in the direction where Ksitigarbha Buddha disappeared. His heart was filled with reverence. Rumble. The sky collapsed and the earth cracked. Everything in the space began to collapse. Su Fang was swept out of the space by a force and appeared above the Netherworld River. The Buddha's light outside the mirage kingdom of Buddha's light rapidly shrank and finally disappeared into the Netherworld River. Su Fang secretly said, Qiangang, I hope that the next time I see you, you will have the power of the ruler of the Netherworld and revive the Buddhism in the myriad of worlds. Swoosh! Swoosh! Dixuan and the others flew towards Su Fang. Huang Lingyao asked anxiously, Yuan Li, did you get the Crimson Spirit Dew? Goli couldn't wait to ask, my lord, did you finally reach the Nirvana realm and obtain the inheritance of Ksitigarbha Buddha? Chu Bingyan also asked at the same time, why didn't Qiangang come out? Where did he go? Su Fang returned to the big goblin Yuan Li's cold and ferocious appearance. He said indifferently, since I was kicked out of the mirage kingdom of Buddha's light, I naturally couldn't reach the Nirvana realm. But Qiangang stayed inside. The inheritance of Ksitigarbha Buddha must have been obtained by him. Huang Lingyao was immediately disappointed. Chu Bingyan was worried for Qiangang, but he was also happy that he had obtained the inheritance of Ksitigarbha Buddha. As for Qi Mian, Eli, and the others, their hearts were finally balanced. Qi Mian said with a look of regret, Great Elder Yuan Li made a great vow to condense a giant ship of thousands of feet. I thought you could easily obtain the inheritance of Ksitigarbha Buddha, but I didn't expect that in the end, it was Qiangang who benefited. I really feel sorry for Great Elder Yuan Li. Qi Mian, I crushed you once in the sea of bitterness. Do you think it's not enough? Do you want me to crush you again? Su Fang sneered. His sharp eyes made Qi Mian feel cold all over. Even his divine aperture was about to be broken. He immediately trembled and didn't dare to say another word. Dixuan said, Great Elder Yuan Li, what's your decision next? Huang Lingyao reminded him, Yuan Li, don't forget about the Yin-Yang heavenly wheel. Su Fang said, I'm going to the Enyang heavenly wheel. After dealing with some important matters, I'll continue to look for the nether sand. Even if Huang Lingyao hadn't reminded him, Su Fang would have gone to the Enyang heavenly wheel first. Grandfather's soul was currently under the control of the heavenly wheel's master. Su Fang could put aside the nether sand, 9 nether embryo stone, and save grandfather first. Eli said gloomily, I came to the 9 netherland to look for the nether sand. Now that I haven't found it, and Great Elder Yuan Li is busy with other matters, how will I explain it to the venerable emperors when I return to the Sky Beacon God Realm? Then, he glanced at Huang Lingyao and said, This person is clearly an evil force from the dark world. If I'm not wrong, she's the Xianming sect master who has joined the Tao-defying alliance. Great Elder Yuan Li is with her. Are you trying to defy the Tao-defying alliance? Su Fang snorted. Eli, when did you have the right to tell me what to do? Huang Lingyao let out a cold laugh. In the ruins of End Heaven? If it wasn't for me, you all would have died at the hands of Dongsha Mashing and evil Venerable Tian Du. Are you human cultivators all so ungrateful? In the 9 Netherland, I'm not afraid of any of you. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. Dixuan raised his eyebrows and was about to say something. Goli, who was hiding in the back, suddenly said, My lord, if you want to go to the Enyang heavenly wheel, you must pass by the soul-sinking beach. The nether sand you're looking for is in the soul-sinking beach. Dixuan was surprised and happy. He said to Su Fang, Great Elder Yuan Li, why don't we find the nether sand in the soul-sinking beach first, and then I'll accompany you to the Enyang heavenly wheel. What do you think? Chapter 2443. Huang Lingyao said coldly, Yuan Li, you'd better not forget that our family is in the hands of the Lord of Tianlun. If he loses his patience, you and I will regret it for the rest of our lives. The Lord of Tianlun? Dixuan looked at Su Fang in surprise. Su Fang hesitated for a moment, and then slowly told everyone about the fact that the soul of his family was controlled by the Lord of Tianlun. Hearing Su Fang's description of the dangers of the Enyang heavenly wheel and the powerful primordial spirit of the Lord of Tianlun, everyone, including Dixuan, was shocked. Their eyes were filled with fear and fear. After thinking for a moment, Dixuan said to Su Fang, In this case, after we find the nether sand in the soul-sinking beach and complete this task, I will accompany Great Elder Yuan Li and Xianming sect master to meet the Lord of Tianlun. Qi Mian stopped him loudly, Lord Dixuan, your status is noble. How can you take risks for a big goblin? Dixuan's face darkened, and he said majestically, Great Elder Yuan Li has made great contributions to the human tribe, and this trip to the 9 Serenities is also thanks to him. I have decided to go to the Enyang heavenly wheel. As for the others, if they don't want to go, I won't force them. Then he cupped his fists to Huang Lingyao. Thank you, Xianming sect master, for your help. When we reach the Enyang heavenly wheel, I will do my best to help. Huang Lingyao snorted coldly and didn't say anything. The Lord of Tianlun was extremely powerful, and he controlled the Enyang heavenly wheel. Huang Lingyao didn't have any confidence to save Shui Wuying's soul. Dixuan was a peerless figure of the imperial people, and his strength was unfathomable. With his help, the chance of saving Shui Wuying's soul was naturally much greater. She naturally wouldn't refuse Dixuan's kindness. Chu Bingyan said, Count me in too. Mo Tiangong forced a smile and said, My 3 disciples and I will only be a burden if we go. Otherwise, we will definitely accompany Yuan Li on this trip. Qi Mian and Eli smiled coldly but did not say anything. Su Fang nodded to Dixuan, Chu Bingyan, and Mo Tiangong and said, Thank you for your kind intentions. Let's go. Dixuan asked Goli for the coordinates of the soul-sinking beach, and took out the measuring heaven longitude and latitude ruler. Buzz buzz buzz. The heaven measuring longitude activated by Dixuan unleashed an astonishing power to distort space. A Xian Guang pierced through the void and instantly extended to infinity. Finally, the Xian Guang released by the measuring heaven measuring longitude and latitude ruler condensed into a netherworld river. There was a huge whirlpool above it, and the netherworld river disappeared into the whirlpool. Dixuan asked Goli, "This is the soul-sinking beach?" Goli was shocked by the power of the measuring heaven measuring longitude and latitude ruler and stuttered, "My lord's divine tool is truly heaven-defying. That whirlpool is the entrance to the soul-sinking beach." "Everyone, let's go." Dixuan led everyone into the Xian Guang. The Xian Guang flickered rapidly, and when everyone returned to normal, they had already appeared above the huge whirlpool that appeared in the Xian Guang. They focused their eyes and looked. They saw the surging netherworld river pouring into the whirlpool from all sides, forming a huge whirlpool with an area of 10,000 li looking from the sky. It looked like a huge black hole that swallowed the entire netherworld river. The dark netherworld river swept countless remnant souls into the whirlpool, which was a spectacular and shocking scene. From the whirlpool, an astonishing power of twisting and devouring primordial spirit was released. Even with Su Fang's powerful primordial spirit, he felt that his divine aperture was shaken, and his primordial spirit was about to break out and be swallowed by the whirlpool. Except for Dixuan and Huang Lingyao, the others were all trembling, and their faces were pale, especially Third Master. If Dixuan had not released the power of his primordial spirit would have been torn apart by the power of the whirlpool in an instant. Su Fang raised his eyebrows and asked Goli, "Do we have to enter the soul-sinking beach directly from this whirlpool?" Goli nodded and said, "That's the only way. I can use the life and death cycle to pass through this whirlpool without being affected. If my lord and the others don't have powerful primordial spirit magic treasures, I'm afraid you will suffer some pain, and in the worst case, your divine aperture will be shattered and you will die." Everyone's expression became gloomy. Dixuan asked in a deep voice, "Judge Ming, with the strength of Great Elder Yuanli, how likely do you think it is for him to safely pass through the whirlpool and reach the soul-sinking beach?" Goli answered, "My lord is unfathomable. It is not difficult for him to pass through alone. Besides, the power of his primordial spirit is extremely powerful. He should be able to release the power of his primordial spirit to protect another person." Su Fang nodded and said, "I can take 2 people with me." Dixuan and the others looked at Su Fang in disbelief. Huang Lingyao and Goli had seen Su Fang's powerful primordial spirit on the reincarnation platform. They did not find it strange that he could resist the attack of the master of Tianluan's primordial spirit. Huang Lingyao said, "I am the successor of the divine race of Yin Underworld. The power of the whirlpool is not a threat to me, but I can only take 1 person with me at most." Dixuan said, "Like Great Elder Yuanli, I can protect 2 people to pass through the whirlpool." The others did not have the powerful primordial spirit of Su Fang and the others. Emo Tiangong, the 3 divine kings, and the 3 divine kings were all very powerful. The monarch god, the 3 treasure refiners, and Chu Bingyan all had helpless looks on their faces, while Qi Mian's face was filled with resentment. Eli was a little strange. He still looked gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. Su Fang's divine light swept over everyone and said, "I will take Master Emo, Chu Bingyan, and the 3 divine kings to enter the soul-sinking beach under the protection of the Lord Dixuan and the Xianming sect master." Qi Mian's face suddenly became very ugly. According to Su Fang's arrangement, it was equivalent to directly abandoning him and Eli. How could he not be angry? QL11, however, there was nothing he could do. He could not force them to pass through the whirlpool, could he? What could he do when his skills were not as good as theirs? Eli sneered but did not say anything. "Great Elder Yuanli will protect Master Emo?" Dixuan frowned and immediately nodded. "It seems that Great Elder Yuanli is very confident in his primordial spirit. Very well, we will follow Great Elder Yuanli's arrangement." Then he said to Eli and Qi Mian, "You 2 stay here for the time being. After I enter the soul-sinking beach, we will see if we can find a way to return. Master Mo Chu Bingyan, let's go. Su Fang activated the primordial spirit's divine power and enveloped Mo Tiangong and Chu Bingyan, forming a layer of primordial spirit's protective power. Then he flew toward the whirlpool above the river. Then Huang Lingyao led the three divine kings. Master Mo and Dixuan led the other two artifact forging masters. Using the primordial spirit's divine power, they headed straight for the whirlpool. As soon as Su Fang approached the whirlpool, he immediately felt an illusory and terrifying primordial spirit's devouring power sweeping over like a storm. It wanted to pull his primordial spirit out and make it fall into the cycle of reincarnation forever. Mo Tiangong and Chu Bingyan were in even more danger. They felt that their divine apertures were about to shatter and their primordial spirits were about to be sucked out of their divine apertures. Second primordial spirit fuse. Su Fang's primordial spirit and second primordial spirit quickly fused, erupting with a shocking primordial spirit's power that blocked the primordial spirit's devouring power sweeping over. Only then did Mo Tiangong and Chu Bingyan feel a little better. They were extremely shocked by Su Fang's powerful primordial spirit's power that surpassed that of a master god. Huang Lingyao directly released a magic treasure that looked like a crescent moon. It was the horn of the Supreme Emperor Mingyu that she had obtained from the Gold Rainbow King's treasure. It released cold moonlight that was filled with the aura of death. It had a powerful primordial spirit's defensive power that protected her and three divine kings. The divine kings followed closely behind Su Fang and entered the whirlpool. Dixuan also had an extraordinary primordial spirit-type magic treasure. It was a magic treasure that looked like a piece of jade. It released a warm and gentle crystal light. Its power was even more shocking than Huang Lingyao's Supreme Emperor Mingyu's horn. In addition, Dixuan's own primordial spirit's power was also very frightening. He looked very calm as he led the other two artifact forging masters. Soon, Su Fang, Dixuan, and the others disappeared into the whirlpool. Yuan Li, how dare you humiliate me, Qi Mian. I swear I will tear you into pieces. Looking at the huge whirlpool, Qi Mian couldn't help but gnash his teeth. Eli said coldly, Qi Mian, do you really want to kill Yuan Li? Of course. Qi Mian snorted. We can't even pass through the whirlpool. How can we kill him? Eli inexplicably snorted and said, I have my own way to pass through the whirlpool and kill Yuan Li. Qi Mian was surprised. You have a way to enter the soul-sinking beach? Why didn't you take it out just now? You didn't want to be humiliated by Yuan Li. At this time, a voice came from nowhere. Eli's method is very simple. I will help you pass through the whirlpool, enter the soul-sinking beach, and kill the big goblin Yuan Li. Not far ahead, a demonic light flashed. Two figures quickly condensed and turned into two cultivators. They were not human cultivators, but demons in human form. You are the demon saint. Qi Mian's divine light changed instantly. A divine power surged out of his body and quickly formed a defense. Dongsha Masheng. The other demon was Dongsha Masheng's eldest son, the Prince of Dongzhou. Unexpectedly, Dongsha Masheng had killed his way to the river Styx and even brought the Prince of Dongzhou with him. Qi Mian looked at Eli, who was calm and collected. He suddenly realized something and shouted angrily, Eli, you colluded with the demon race. Eli said coldly, My Wushang Yi clan has dealt with the demon race since ancient times. What's so strange about us colluding with the demon race now? The Prince of Dongzhou chuckled. Father helped you kill that big goblin Yuan Li. No, it should be Su Fang. You should be happy. Yuan Li is Su Fang. That's impossible. Qi Mian was surprised and shocked. At this time, the Prince of Dongzhou's eyes shot out a beam of demonic light and divine power. It quickly turned into a handprint and bombarded Qi Mian's defense. The Prince of Dongzhou's strength surpassed that of a master god. Under his attack, Qi Mian's defense became as fragile as a piece of paper and shattered with a bang. The Prince of Dongjia suddenly opened his mouth and revealed his ferocious fangs. A burst of divine power erupted and shrouded Qi Mian. Qi Mian only lasted for a dozen breaths before he was swallowed into the Prince of Dongjia's stomach. Pa pa pa! The Prince of Dongjia's body wriggled. After a while, he turned into Qi Mian. Chapter 2444. It turned out that the Prince of Dongjia was transformed by Su Fang using the demon shape-shifting technique in the lifeless prairie. The demon race was ruthlessly teased, and both sides suffered great losses. At that time, the Prince of Dongjia was already suspicious. When the demon race captured Domain Master Wuzhen, his demon shape-shifting technique was taken away by the demon race for research. After the Prince of Dongjia returned, he tried to get his hands on the demon shape-shifting technique. This Prince of Dongjia was also a genius of the demon race. He actually combined the demon shape-shifting technique with the demon race's forbidden technique of fusing human cultivators. After some cultivation and using the demon shape-shifting technique, not only could he devour cultivators and take over their bodies, even his aura would change. QL11 Dongsha Moshing sized up the Qi Mian and nodded. This technique is really extraordinary. It can easily change one's body and aura. No wonder Su Fang used the demon shape-shifting technique. With the big goblin's body, he could even deceive venerable sovereigns. Eli said fawningly, "The Crown Prince has mastered such a powerful technique. This time, Su Fang won't be able to escape." Dongsha Moshing said majestically, "If we can really kill Su Fang and obtain the Origin Sacred Mirror, Eli, you and your E-clan will make a great contribution to the demon race. The benefits that the demon race promised to the E-clan will be doubled." Eli bowed and said, "Thank you, Lord Demon Saint." Dongsha Moshing said, "Eli, this saint will temporarily hide in the demon tool. Take the demon tool with you, and this saint will help you pass through the whirlpool and enter the soul-sinking beach. Remember, don't act rashly if you don't have full confidence." Eli said, "Lord Demon Saint, why don't you just kill your way to the soul-sinking beach and suppress Su Fang? Why do you have to go through so much trouble? Do you think Su Fang can be suppressed so easily? Even this saint, if I can't succeed in a sneak attack, it will be difficult for me to gain any advantage over Su Fang." Dongsha Moshing's words shocked Eli to the core. Su Fang is only at the Dao integration stage, but he is so powerful that he is qualified to fight against a Supreme Venerable? Fight? If I give him a chance to activate his magic weapon, and he has an Emperor Master beside him, if I don't launch a sneak attack, even this saint may be killed by him. Dongsha Moshing snorted, fear in his eyes. How is this possible? Eli's expression changed instantly. The Prince of Dongjia's eyes were also filled with solemnity and fear. "When I was in the Dao Defiance Alliance, I heard that evil Lord Tiandu was killed by Su Fang. I only managed to survive by using the reincarnation life reversal scripture, but my vitality was greatly damaged, and I no longer had the strength of an evil lord. That's why I hurried to the ninth underworld to inform my Holy Father." Eli's face, which was originally full of malice, turned pale at this moment. Thinking of the disdain he had for Su Fang, who was disguised as Yuanli, along the way, he shuddered with fear. Dongsha Moshing rolled out a black demonic orb from his palm, and his body quickly turned into an illusory state. He transformed into a cloud of demonic cloud and disappeared into the demonic orb. Eli absorbed the demonic orb into his body, and then possessed the Prince of Dongjia's body, Qi Mian, and flew toward the whirlpool. Boom! Su Fang withstood the impact and shackles of the vital spirit inside the whirlpool, and together with Chu Bingyan and Mo Tiangong, they were washed into the cold and still water by the rolling netherworld river. The vital spirit pressure immediately disappeared, and the surrounding netherworld river did not pose much of a threat to Su Fang, Chu Bingyan, and Mo Tiangong. After being washed by the river water for some distance, they quickly rushed out of the water. The three of them steadied themselves in the air and looked back, and immediately fell into an intense shock. They entered another space-time plane from the whirlpool, and that whirlpool was the passage that connected the two planes. They saw the rolling nether-world river water falling from the sky like the Milky Way, and it was a spectacular sight. The river water rushed into the plane, forming a vast ocean. Shocking loud noises reverberated in the plane, constantly attacking the vital spirit, and wanting to make people fall into the cycle of reincarnation. How is this soul-sinking beach? It should be called soul-sinking sea. Seeing such a natural wonder of heaven and earth, Su Fang was also shocked. Dixuan, Huang Lingyao, and the treasure refiner they were protecting, as well as underworld judge Goli, all successfully entered the soul-sinking beach from the whirlpool. When they came out of the water, they were also shocked to see this scene. When they passed through the whirlpool, their divine apertures were attacked, and their vital spirits were greatly damaged. Not only Mo Tiangong's three successors, but even Dixuan's face was somewhat pale. When they saw that Su Fang, Mo Tiangong, and Chu Bingyan were all safe and sound, they were immediately shocked, and were amazed by the power of Su Fang's vital spirit. Goli suddenly shouted, "Nether sand! Quickly look, that's nether sand!" Su Fang used the Great Perfection Stage ability, and looked carefully. He saw that in the river that fell from the sky, there would occasionally be things the size of rice grains, like black gravels, flying out of the water. These gravels flashed with cold black xian guang, and they were the size of rice grains, but they actually emitted a terrifying power that could make souls fall into the cycle of reincarnation. Before this, Goli had introduced the origin of nether sand. It was the nether souls that had fallen into the nether river. When the nether river passed through the two planes of spacetime, it was distorted by the spacetime planes, and the terrifying power of the vital spirit condensed. Nether sand, that's right, that's nether sand. Mo Tiangong exclaimed loudly, appearing abnormally excited. 3. The Divine Lord was surprised and happy, and was about to rush over to collect the nether sand. Goli hurriedly stopped him. "Sir, please wait." 3. The Divine Lord asked in surprise, "What's wrong?" Goli explained, "The nether sand is definitely not something that can be collected so easily. It is extremely dangerous." Without waiting for him to finish his words, whoosh, 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 from the soul-sinking beach below, black shadows rushed out. The smaller ones were only a foot long, and they looked like strange black fish with sharp teeth. The bigger ones were hundreds of feet long, and they looked like flood dragons. They were emitting a murderous aura, and their faces were ferocious. There was a sharp blade-like horn on their heads. These nether monsters rushed out of the water, going against the current, and then rushed over to the newly condensed nether sand, crazily snatching and killing. The black fish-like nether monsters were not powerful, but there were many of them, and they had merged with the nether river. If one was not fighting for the nether sand, it would be very difficult to sense their existence. The flood dragon-like nether monsters were even more terrifying. In the nether river, each of them was no weaker than a lord god. There were more than a dozen of them, and it was unknown how many were hidden in the soul-sinking beach. Then, everyone realized that once the nether sand fell into the soul-sinking beach, it would immediately disappear without a trace, as if it had melted. Even the nether monsters could not capture it. Dixuan laughed bitterly. "Looks like it isn't so easy to gather nether sand." Mo Tiangong frowned and said, "Let's not talk about those nether monsters first. Isn't the amount of nether sand a little too little?" After observing for a while, they noticed that over a dozen grains of nether sand would be separated from the surging nether river every 2 hours, and the nether monsters would fight to devour them. A very small amount of them would fall into the soul-sinking beach and vanish without a trace. According to Mo Tiangong's estimations, every single magic treasure would have to be infused with at least 100 grains of nether sand in order to allow a magic treasure to possess the ability to restrain Tao defiance and cause them to fall into the cycle of reincarnation. If it was some formidable magic treasures, then even more nether sand would be required. However, there was so little nether sand every single time, and they had to face so many nether monsters. So, when would they be able to gather enough nether sand? We can only gather it slowly. There's no other way. Dishwan was very helpless as well. He had never thought that after finding nether sand with so much difficulty, it would be so troublesome to obtain it. Su Fang was greatly disappointed as well. Nether sand was a spiritual item that contained the essence of extreme yin. He was prepared to obtain some to refine his magic treasures, especially the Xianwang Six Paths Pagoda. If he fused it with nether sand, its might would definitely increase by quite a lot. However, the amount required would definitely be shocking. Su Fang became rather anxious. If they spent too much time gathering nether sand, it would be rather dangerous for his grandfather, who ended up in the hands of the Sky Wheel Lord. They left the surface of the soul-sinking beach and arrived on the shore. The shore of the soul-sinking beach was covered in black reef. All of them were condensed from the aura of the underworld. They were icy cold and filled with the aura of death. Even overgods would not be able to endure it if they stayed here for long periods of time. They would be forced to circulate their energy to defend themselves at all times. Everyone created formations on the reefs to isolate the icy aura of the underworld. They treated it as a temporary resting place. Next, they discussed taking turns to gather nether sand. Unexpectedly, Chi Mian and Eli broke through the surface of the soul-sinking beach and flew towards them. Everyone was very surprised. Dishwan asked, "How did the two of you safely pass through the whirlpool?" Eli said indifferently, "After all, the two of us are from the ancient god clan. How could we not have powerful primordial soul-type magic treasures? Although our divine apertures were slightly damaged when we passed through the whirlpool, it was not difficult to pass through the whirlpool." Dishwan and the others no longer had any doubts. Su Fang's perfected sensing ability swept over Chi Mian and Eli, and a ball of doubt immediately surged in his heart. Chi Mian did not seem to have any abnormalities. However, Su Fang had a perfect physical body and an amazing sensing ability. Moreover, he had mastered the life-shrinking technique. He was extremely sensitive to the aura of destiny. When Su Fang saw Chi Mian for the first time, he immediately sensed that there was something wrong with him. Chi Mian and Eli's actions are indeed suspicious. Life-shrinking technique. Su Fang immediately used the life-shrinking technique to sense Chi Mian's aura of destiny. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A familiar aura of destiny caused the Tao of destiny in Su Fang's mind to flash rapidly. Finally, it condensed into a figure in his mind. It was not Chi Mian. It was a demon expert that Su Fang was very familiar with. It was the Prince of Dongzhou. Chi Mian was actually possessed by the Prince of Dongzhou. Moreover, the possession technique he used is very similar to the demon transformation technique. What a good Prince of Dongzhou! If I did not have the ability to sense destiny, I would have been killed by him. Chapter 2445. Chi Mian had been possessed by the Prince of Dongzhou. Su Fang's heart was in turmoil, but his face remained calm. Since Chi Mian is problematic, Eli is definitely not that simple. Su Fang continued to use the life-shrinking technique to sense Eli. There was nothing unusual about Eli's fate aura. However, Su Fang could sense an extremely ethereal fate aura from Eli's body. Moreover, it was very familiar. Dongsha Mashing. Dongsha Mashing is actually hiding in Eli's body. Due to the isolation of the artifact, I can't sense his fate chi, but his fate chi can't be wrong. Dongsha Mashing and the Prince of Dongzhou, this time I'll make you go for wool but come home shorn. Su Fang's heart surged with a fierce aura. Su Fang was very confident that he could kill Dongsha Mashing since he was able to kill the evil dominator of Tiandu. But it's best not to expose my identity, and I have to protect Mo Tiangong in case Dongsha Mashing is desperate. Su Fang began to think of a countermeasure. Next, Dishwan arranged for everyone to take turns to collect the nether sand. There was only a certain amount of nether sand that appeared each time. It was useless no matter how many people went, it would only waste their energy. With everyone's strength, except for Mo Tiangong and his 3 disciples, they were not afraid of facing those nether monsters alone. The only trouble was that it would take a lot of time. Dishwan was the first to go. After a month, he came back with thousands of nether sand in his hand. Mo Tiangong found that the moment the nether sand left the range of the soul-sinking beach, the reincarnation power it contained was quickly dissipating. He and the other 3 artifact refiners hurriedly entered the array, took out the cauldron, and used a special hand seal to refine it. Only then could they bring it out of the 9 underworlds and integrate it into the artifact of the cultivators, becoming a great weapon to kill the defiant. Next, everyone went to collect the nether sand one by one. Even Eli, Chi Mian, and Huang Lingyao came forward one after another. Because the nether river that fell from the sky contained the terrifying impact of the primordial spirit, it was impossible to use the world god's might in a large area. It could only be collected near the nether river. In addition, there were also the netherworld monsters in the soul-sinking beach. Although they were not life-threatening, it was still quite a challenge for everyone. Based on the amount of nether sand collected and the amount of nether sand one could determine one's strength. Among them, Chi Mian was the weakest. In fact, he was currently possessed by the Prince of Dongjia, and his true strength was only slightly inferior to Dishwan's. Then there was Chu Bingyan. Compared to Dishwan and Huang Lingyao, he was obviously much weaker. Finally, it was Su Fang's turn. He came to the soul-sinking beach and stood in the air with his hands behind his back. Whoosh! Whoosh! More nether sand flew out from the nether river's water that flowed down. Countless black fishes and dragon-like netherworld monsters shot out from the soul-sinking beach. The nether river that flowed down was extremely vast, covering an area of tens of thousands of miles. Countless netherworld monsters gathered into a black tide and suddenly burst out from the water. The scene was very shocking. At this time, Su Fang suddenly burst into a monstrous demonic fire and quickly turned into a fire cloud, covering the water for tens of thousands of miles. The terrifying demonic fire blocked the sight of the people on the shore and burned the netherworld monsters that rushed toward the nether sand. The entire soul-sinking beach was boiling. Chi Mian, who was possessed by the Prince of Dongjia, said in surprise, "What is he doing?" Exian snorted and said, "He made such a big fuss, but he only collected a dozen grains of nether sand. He will run out of energy before he can collect more nether sand. He is just playing to the gallery." Chi Mian sent a telepathic message. That might not be the case. Su Fang would never do anything meaningless. You must be careful. The Prince of Dongjia was indeed a peerless genius of the demon race. He immediately guessed that Su Fang had other intentions, but he could not guess Su Fang's true intentions. Su Fang purposely made such a big scene to deceive others. He used the demonic fire as a cover and released Shroud's doppelganger to quickly enter the soul-sinking beach. The purpose of this was to let Shroud's doppelganger recover his strength. The enemy he was about to face was an extremely powerful demon saint. His strength was definitely higher than Evil Lord Tiandu, and Su Fang's trump card to deal with Dongsha Mashing, other than the Origin Sacred Mirror, was Shroud's doppelganger. There was still a fierce battle waiting for Su Fang in the Yin-Yang Heavenly Wheel. Therefore, Su Fang would not use the Origin Sacred Mirror easily. He could only rely on Shroud's doppelganger. There were so many nether monsters in the soul-sinking beach. Su Fang could not find the 9 nether embryo stone. He could only let Shroud's doppelganger devour the nether monsters to recover his strength. As for how much strength Shroud's doppelganger could recover, Su Fang did not have much confidence. In addition, he let Shroud's doppelganger hide in the soul-sinking beach. When he really confronted Dongsha Mashing, he might be able to use it as a surprise attack. QL11 When the demonic fire dissipated. Countless nether monsters were killed by Su Fong. In Su Fong's hands, there were more than a dozen nether sand. Shroud's doppelganger also quietly entered the soul-sinking beach. Returning to the shore, Su Fong handed the nether sand to Mo Tiangong and then entered the formation on the reef. Sitting down cross-legged, Su Fong transmitted his primordial spirit to Dixuan. Dixuan. Dixuan quickly responded, "Great Elder Yuan Li, what's the matter? Be careful and protect Master Mo and his 3 successors. You have to be careful too." "Why is that? Could it be that there's something wrong with Qi Mian and Eli?" Dixuan was also a powerful person. Seeing Su Fong so cautious, he immediately thought of Qi Mian and Eli, who came to the soul-sinking beach later. Their actions were indeed suspicious. After Su Fong's reminder, Dixuan directly went to the reef where Mo Tiangong and the 3 artifact forging masters were and sat in the formation. Even if Dongsha Mashing personally attacked, it would be impossible to kill Mo Tiangong in one fell swoop and give Su Fong enough time to prepare. Time flew, and soon 100 years had passed. Everyone was surprised to find that there were fewer and fewer nether monsters in the soul-sinking beach. Later, whenever nether sand appeared, they could no longer see the tide-like black fish and flood dragon monsters. In this way, it became much easier to collect nether sand, which made everyone surprised and happy. They would never have thought that the reason for all this was Shroud's doppelganger that Su Fong had secretly placed in the soul-sinking beach. Shroud was the supreme ruler of the 10 underworlds. When Shroud's doppelganger released a little bit of his aura, those nether monsters were scared half to death and were slaughtered by Shroud's doppelganger. After being cleaned by Shroud's doppelganger in the soul-sinking beach, most of the nether monsters were devoured. After 100 years of accumulation, the amount of nether sand collected was quite considerable. However, it was still far from the goal of this trip. Huang Lingyao was worried about the safety of her sister's soul, so she began to become anxious and kept urging Su Fong. On this day, Shroud's doppelganger suddenly transmitted a thought, but because he had no self-awareness, his thoughts were vague and unclear. Su Fong could not understand what it meant. Su Fong projected the power of his Yuan spirit and soon found Shroud's doppelganger in the depths of the soul-sinking beach. He separated a wisp of his Yuan spirit and merged it with Shroud's doppelganger. He immediately found that after 100 years of devouring nether monsters, Shroud's doppelganger had recovered a lot. At the very least, he had the strength of an ordinary Emperor Realm Master. However, there was still a big gap between him and his peak state. It seemed that he had to find the 9 nether embryo stone in order to let Shroud's doppelganger regain his previous strength. Devouring nether monsters could only keep him alive at most. With the help of Shroud's doppelganger's eyes, Su Fong saw a shocking scene. There is actually another world in the depths of the soul-sinking beach. At the bottom of the soul-sinking beach, there was a naturally formed barrier. This barrier was extremely powerful, and one could vaguely see another world inside. "Let's go in and take a look." Su Fong transmitted a thought to Shroud's doppelganger. Shroud's doppelganger flew towards the natural barrier and directly merged into it. The incomparably powerful barrier seemed to be defenseless against him. Inside the barrier was an independent spacetime. This was caused by the constant compression of the underworld Yin force at the bottom of the soul-sinking beach, causing the space to distort. This space was not large, only a little more than 1,000 kilometers in size, but it was filled with astonishing Yuan spirit power that could affect even Emperor Realm Masters. Shroud's doppelganger did not seem to have any abnormalities. As soon as he entered the space, he immediately became excited and, without waiting for Su Fong to give him an order, he flew towards a dark mountain range that was more than a dozen kilometers in size. His body quickly became illusory and merged into the mountain range. This was the amazing thing about the supreme ruler of the underworld. Shroud's doppelganger could control all matter, energy, and even nether monsters condensed from underworld Yin force. Su Fang's Yuan spirit consciousness was shocked to discover that this mountain range actually contained the same kind of energy as nether sand, releasing an incomparably terrifying Yuan spirit power and a kind of illusory reincarnation force. He analyzed that the nether sand that had disappeared from the soul-sinking beach had not really disappeared, but had been absorbed into this space and accumulated over the years, forming this mountain range together with other impurities. Then, as Shroud's doppelganger went deep into the mountain range, an astonishing Yuan spirit impact and pressure seeped into Shroud's divine aperture. Shroud's doppelganger did not feel anything, but Su Fang's Yuan spirit consciousness was shattered by the impact. On the reef on the shore of the soul-sinking beach, Su Fang's face turned pale, but soon returned to normal. Losing a wisp of his Yuan spirit consciousness had caused Su Fang's Yuan spirit to suffer some damage, but it was very slight and almost negligible. There is so much nether sand. If I can get all of it, it should be enough. And that space is a good place to kill the Prince of Dongjia and Dongsha Mashing. After thinking for a while, Su Fang's eyes flashed with a ruthless light. Dongsha Mashing and the Prince of Dongjia would seize the opportunity to attack sooner or later. Instead of that, it would be better to take the initiative and lure them to the bottom of the soul-sinking beach to kill them. Chapter 2446. Su Fang started to think about how to lure Dongsha Mashing, or the Prince of Dongjia, into the space at the bottom of the soul-sinking beach. Chu Bingyan returned from above the soul-sinking beach and collected a huge amount of nether sand. After he handed the nether sand to Mo Tiangong, Chu Bingyan suddenly sent a voice transmission to Dixuan and Su Fang. Lord Dixuan, Grand Elder Yuan Li. Dixuan and Su Fang flew out from the formations on their respective reef. Chu Bingyan, what's the matter? Chu Bingyan said, I'm thinking of searching for a fortuitous encounter in the soul-sinking beach, so I'm reporting to both of you. So Chu Bingyan cultivated in the Grand Tao of Ice, and it was an extremely unique icy flame technique. He needed to search for spirit water of extreme yin and extreme coldness to cleanse his body. At the same time, such spirit water was extremely useful for tempering his heavenly Tao Dharma idol and improving the might of his divine ability. This was the main reason why Chu Bingyan had taken the risk to enter the ninth hell. Qian had just obtained the inheritance of the Ksitigarbha Buddha, yet he hadn't obtained anything until now. So, how could he not be anxious? Spirit water of extreme yin and extreme coldness? Su Fang thought in his heart. He recalled the nether spring that he'd obtained with the bald middle-aged man and the young Tao Defiant when he'd just entered the ninth hell. Take a look and see if this is helpful to your cultivation. Su Fang waved his hand and swept out a strand of demonic qi from his palm, and then a storage ring flew towards Chu Bingyan. Chu Bingyan entered the storage ring with his consciousness, and he was instantly pleasantly surprised. This is the legendary nether spring? Moreover, there's so much of it. Thank you, Grand Elder Yuan Li. Su Fang asked, is this much nether spring enough? Chu Bingyan smiled embarrassedly. This nether spring is definitely enough to cultivate the heavenly Tao Dharma idol. However, its quality is slightly inferior if it's used to cleanse the body. This is a rare opportunity to enter the ninth underworld. If I don't go to the depths of the soul-sinking beach to search for it, I will be very unwilling. Di Xian raised his eyebrows. I don't know why those nether creatures suddenly disappeared from the soul-sinking beach, but the inside of the soul-sinking beach is still incomparably dangerous. You entering the soul-sinking beach alone, isn't it extremely dangerous? Su Fang suddenly said, in that case, this venerable will accompany you. Within the prison suppression codex, Chu Bingyan's master had stepped forward and sacrificed himself to give Su Fang a chance to escape. Before his death, he had entrusted Chu Bingyan to Su Fang. Su Fang had always remembered this favor. Chu Bingyan wanted to search for opportunities. If Su Fang could help, he would naturally help. In addition, Su Fang had been worrying about not having a chance to lure Dongsha Mashing and the Prince of Dongjia to the space at the bottom of Soul-Sinking Beach. If he accompanied Chu Bingyan to the depths of Soul-Sinking Beach, Dongsha Mashing would definitely not be able to sit still. Chu Bingyan was surprised and delighted. Then, he hesitated. How can I repay Great Elder Yuanli for treating me so well? Su Fang said indifferently. This venerable one is also going to enter Soul-Sinking Beach to search for treasures that contain the essence of Yin. Accompanying you is just a matter of convenience. You don't have to thank me. At this moment, Eli flew over from the reef. Great Elder Yuanli and Chu Bingyan are planning to enter Soul-Sinking Beach? It just so happens that I am also going to search for treasures to refine my heavenly Tao Dharma idol. Why don't we travel together? It will be much safer this way. Su Fang sneered in his heart. As expected, he took the bait. Chu Bingyan, you should recover first. After 10 years, you will enter Soul-Sinking Beach. After saying this, Su Fang left in embarrassment and returned to the formation on the reef. Just as he sat down with his legs crossed, Dixuan transmitted his primordial spirit. Great Elder Yuanli, Eli suggested to enter Soul-Sinking Beach with you. I think she is plotting something against you. Don't worry, this venerable one already has a plan. Su Fang replied. After this venerable one enters Soul-Sinking Beach, you can make your move. Dixuan snorted. I want to see what Qi Mian is plotting. Su Fang reminded. Dixuan, don't be careless. If this venerable one is right, Qi Mian has already been possessed by Dongsha Mashing's eldest son, Prince of Dongjia. This demon once fought against Di Yuan in the wasteland, and his strength surpasses that of a lord god. Prince of Dongjia Dixuan was surprised and shocked, but soon after, he was a little doubtful. After ending the conversation with Dixuan, Su Fang began to settle down and enter a state of cultivation. He continued to cultivate the 9 suns 9 transformations and the heavenly secret life shrinking technique. At the same time, he continued to comprehend the Advent life reversal scripture and integrate the Paramitha Buddha Sarira that Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva had given him. He was making the final preparations to become a Lord God. 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. Su Fang crushed a piece of the heavenly secret life shrinking technique rune inside the formation. After crushing it, it released the power of destiny and quickly covered up all the auras in the space inside the formation. Then, Su Fang released more than 100 big goblin from the Xianwang Six Paths Pagoda, led by the lion demon Shirba. There were 10 Lord-level big goblins, while the rest had reached the late-stage Tao integration stage. After so many years of training and an endless supply of resources, these big goblins had already completely submitted to Su Fang. Therefore, Su Fang dared to release them without any worries to prevent any accidents from happening. Su Fang said, Shirba, take these big goblin and stay here. Assist Dixuan in killing the Prince of Dongjia. Especially protect Grand Master Mo Tiangong. Divine Lord. Yes, Master. Leaving behind many big goblin, Su Fang walked out of the formation. Huang Lingyao's cold and embarrassed voice sounded. Yuan Li, we've been delayed for so long. If we delay any longer, our loved ones will be in great danger. I don't dare to continue wasting time here. When will we go to the Yin-Yang Heavenly Wheel? Give me an exact time. Su Fang waved his hand and rolled out a sealed Xian Guang, flying it to Huang Lingyao. Huang Lingyao asked in confusion. This is, Su Fang transmitted his thoughts. There's a drop of crimson spirit dew sealed in it. It should be enough for your sister's soul. I'm going to solve a small problem now. It won't be long before we can go to the Yin-Yang Heavenly Wheel together. Crimson spirit dew? Huang Lingyao was surprised and happy. She quickly sucked the Xian Guang into her body and checked it carefully. She was delighted again. Only then did she realize that Su Fang had not gained nothing in the sea of bitterness. He might have even obtained a great fortune. This big goblin Yuan Li is really extraordinary. I'm afraid that even Su Fang is not as good as him. How did Su Fang subdue him? Huang Lingyao looked at Su Fang's figure and felt that he was more mysterious. Su Fang, Chu Bingyan, and Eli each cast their defenses and entered the soul-sinking beach, quickly flying to the depth. The underworld river in the soul-sinking beach was not real water, but a liquid substance condensed by the chi of the underworld and the power of samsara. Not only was it extremely cold, but it also contained the aura of death. It had the ability to shackle and devour life and blood chi, and it also contained the power to oppress the vital spirit. It was a huge threat to any living being. The deeper they went into the soul-sinking beach, the more shocking the aura of death and coldness. The three of them also slowed down. They had to circulate their demon chi and divine vitality to resist the shackles around them. Fortunately, there was no underworld monster in the soul-sinking beach, which made it much easier for them. Along the way, Su Fang was always vigilant and did not dare to be careless. This time, they were facing a demon saint and not an ordinary enemy. The slightest carelessness could lead to death. How could he not be careful? About 10 days later, under Su Fang's conscious guidance, they arrived at the boundary at the bottom of the soul-sinking beach. I didn't expect there to be such a world in the soul-sinking beach. Eli exclaimed in surprise. Chu Bingyan's eyes flashed with a hale and hearty light. There must be treasures inside the boundary. Maybe there is the extreme yin and extreme cold spiritual water that I need. Su Fang said indifferently, "We are here to find treasures. Since we have encountered it, we naturally have to go in and take a look." Eli, try to tear the boundary. You dare to order me? Eli's face was full of anger, but he soon returned to normal. He laughed coldly. How dare I disobey the orders of Yuan Li's great elder? In reality, there was a sharp murderous aura flashing in his deep eyes. Soon after, it was hidden in his deep eyes. Chi. A black xianguang shot up into the sky from Eli's head. It tore the surrounding underworld river water apart and swept to the side, forming a space of 100 square miles. The black xianguang quickly condensed into an arrow that was 10 feet long. It exuded an astonishing power of destruction, which made Su Fang's heart palpitate. It was as if the life and blood in his body were frozen. Eli had directly used his heavenly Tao Dharma form. Break. Eli pointed at the boundary. The Dharma form arrow, which had the power to tear the sky apart and destroy all life, landed on the boundary. Boom. Crack. 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 Under Eli's full-powered attack, the boundary shook violently. Then, it tore a hole that was 10 feet wide. Such a powerful attack could kill an ordinary upper-rank lord. Even peak lord-level powerhouses would have to avoid it. Eli looked pleased with himself. He took the lead and entered the crack in a flash. QL-11 Su Fang and Chu Bingyan followed closely behind and entered the boundary. The naturally formed boundary quickly closed up and returned to its original state. Just as Su Fang, Chu Bingyan, and Eli entered the boundary, Chi Mian had finished collecting nether sand above soul-sinking beach. He flew toward the shore. Dixuan flew over from the shore. Chi Mian asked in surprise, Lord Dixuan, what is it? Dixuan's expression was grave. He transmitted his primordial spirit. I suspect that big goblin Yuan Li. Chi Mian said in surprise, is there something suspicious about big goblin Yuan Li? Dixuan was about to speak when he suddenly looked toward the center of soul-sinking beach. He exclaimed loudly, what's that? Chi Mian was shocked and stunned. Just as he was about to transmit his sensing power, a shadow suddenly shot out of Dixuan's eyes. In an instant, it condensed into a celestial mountain that had shrunk countless times. It crashed toward Chi Mian with a loud boom. Dixuan you, Chi Mian was shocked and furious. In his haste, he only had time to release his divine power to defend himself. His divine body was shattered by Dixuan's attack. He instantly turned into a ball of rolling demonic light. A furious voice came from the demonic light. Dixuan, how did you see through my demon shape-shifting technique? Dixuan sneered indifferently. Yuan Li's first elder is indeed observant. Not only did he see that Qi Mian was possessed, but he also determined that you are the Prince of Dongjia. Die. After killing you, I still have to help Yuan Li kill Eli. Yuan Li. Chapter 2447. Su Fang, Chu Bingyan, and Eli entered the space at the bottom of the soul-sinking beach. The Black Mountain Range inside the barrier released a terrifying pressure on their primordial spirits, causing the three of them to sway and almost lose control. Chu Bingyan and Eli were shocked. They hurriedly used their primordial spirits to stabilize the defense of their divine apertures. Only then did they stabilize themselves. Su Fang had already expected this, but he still pretended to be affected, and also staggered along with him. What is that mountain range? Chu Bingyan and Eli projected their primordial spirits to investigate the Black Mountain Range. Su Fang was secretly communicating with Shroud's clone. Due to the influence of the nether sand in the Black Mountain Range, as well as some other unknown reasons, Su Fang sensed that Shroud's clone was still in the depths of the Black Mountain Range. Its aura had become extremely faint. If Shroud's clone had not been created by Su Fang using the Origin Sacred Mirror, and the two of them were connected by fate and karma, it would have been impossible to sense his existence. Su Fang was astonished. Strange, Shroud's clone seems to have become stronger. But this is a good thing. Then, Su Fang transmitted his thoughts to the big goblin and experts in the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda. He asked them to channel all their energy into their natal magic treasures. Then, through the power of their natal magic treasures, all the energy seeped into Su Fang's flesh and blood. That mountain range actually contains nether sand. Eli discovered some clues from the Black Mountain Range. She was shocked and pleasantly surprised. Then I would like to congratulate Lord Demon Saint. You have finally found a suitable place to be buried. Su Fang's voice, which was filled with killing intent, suddenly rang out. Eli's divine light changed instantly. Before he could react, Su Fang's fist, which contained a terrifying power that could destroy heaven and earth, came crashing down on him. Su Fang's apocalyptic punch in his natal state had already surpassed the peak of the overgod realm and reached the level of a supreme sovereign. He could even severely injure a supreme sovereign. Moreover, Su Fang's punch was a sneak attack. In the blink of an eye, the attack had enveloped Eli. He had no time to react. Boom! A demonic aura rose from Eli's body, but before it could form a defense on the surface of Eli's divine body, it was smashed into pieces by Su Fang's devastating punch. Eli's divine body was immediately torn apart and turned into blood and gore. Finally, under the destructive power of the Fist of Destruction, she was reduced to nothingness. A black demonic bead was sent flying. It made a series of cracking sounds and almost shattered. Dark demonic light gushed out of the devil orb and instantly condensed into the figure of Dongsha Masheng. Su Fang, you actually discovered me. How did you do it? Dongsha Masheng's eyes were filled with surprise and shock. It was too surprising. He was originally hiding in Eli's body. With his powerful strength as a great demon saint and the protection of his supreme demonic weapon, he had planned to launch a sneak attack on Su Fang and suppress him in one fell swoop. He did not expect that. Dongsha Masheng did not expect that Su Fang would still see through him even though he had hidden so well. How could he not be shocked? Chu Bingyan was sent flying by the shockwave caused by the power of Su Fangda's apocalyptic punch. He also suffered some minor injuries, but his heart was filled with shock. How could he care about those injuries? Dongsha Masheng? Su Fang. Chu Bingyan was dumbfounded. His face was full of disbelief. How could a demon god like you know about my, Su Fang's, divine powers? Su Fang said domineeringly. Although he was still in the form of the big goblin Yuan Li, his voice had changed into his original voice. Extraordinary, truly extraordinary. For a human cultivator to have such a peerless character like you, it is no wonder that you are regarded as the savior of the myriad worlds. The Eastern demon saint praised. Then he smiled coldly. It's my great honor to be able to kill a peerless human cultivator with my own hands and completely cut off the hope of mankind. Chu Bingyan could finally conclude that the big goblin Yuan Li was Su Fang. He was surprised and happy. Su Fang, you didn't go into seclusion in Yuan Tiangong, but came to the 9 Serenities? Su Fang nodded and said, now is not the time to talk. Protect yourself and don't get involved. After I kill Dongsha Mashing, I'll talk to you in detail. Dongsha Mashing laughed wildly. Kill me? What a madman who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Release the Emperor Realm Master beside you and take out the Origin Sacred Mirror. Let's see if you can kill this saint. As his laughter echoed, shadows separated from his body and quickly turned into giant gluttonous demons. They opened their bloody mouths like sunflowers and charged towards Su Fang and Chu Bingyan with burning devil chi. There were a total of 12 Gorb demons. Every single one of them was only 300 meters long, but every single one of them possessed the terrifying strength of a peak over God. Chu Bingyan's divine light instantly changed. Su Fang's expression also changed slightly. He had released over 1,000 big goblin and experts in one go. Heavens? Shui 7 Zilu Zhongshou Ing Xian Xian Xiao? Forcing the 4-cut Kuei to match the Kuei? Then, Su Fang released Gui Gui and the dragon bird. His second primordial spirit also turned into a black Xian Guang and instantly charged towards the Gorb demons. Su Fang was still not at ease. He took out the evil god flag and released countless resurrected expert. They swept towards the Gorb demons with monstrous death chi. A chaotic battle immediately unfolded in the narrow space. In this space, due to the suppression of the primordial spirit released by the Black Mountain Range, no matter if it was the Gorb demons, big goblin or cultivators, their primordial spirits were affected. It was difficult for them to unleash their full strength. Therefore, the scene of the battle was not that shocking. You have quite a lot of experts under you. You even have the supreme saint weapon of the evil Lord Tiandu. However, this saint only needs to suppress you. Everything else is fleeting. Dongsha Mashing sneered disdainfully and charged towards Su Fang. Heaven's Supervisor Token. Prison Suppressing Codex. Su Fang took out the Heaven's Supervisor Token. Like the embodiment of the Heavenly Tao's order, it released a supreme divine power that restricted the operation of the Heavenly Tao and shackled the space around Dongsha Mashing. Then, Su Fang activated the Prison Suppressing Codex and cooperated with the Heaven Supervisor Token. The open black book released a black Xian Guang that enveloped Dongsha Mashing and was about to suck him into the codex. If these two heavenly law divine weapons were not damaged, this saint would have no choice but to surrender when your cultivation level has reached the venerable sovereign level. Kakik, it's far from enough to suppress me now. A white Xian Guang suddenly erupted from Dongsha Mashing's body. It was extremely evil and condensed into threads that quickly intertwined into a huge net, isolating the power of the Heaven Supervisor Token and the Prison Suppressing Codex. The huge net rolled backwards. The white Xian Guang that erupted was like a huge wave piled up by white bones. It looked like it was about to engulf the two heavenly law divine weapons. Boom, boom, boom. The power of the Heaven Supervisor Token condensed into chains of order and collided with the huge net cast by Dongsha Mashing, causing a large-scale explosion. Suddenly shock flashed in Dongsha Mashing's eyes. After a flash of demonic light, he disappeared without a trace. The huge net that swept towards the Heaven Supervisor Token and the Prison Suppressing Codex also rapidly dissipated. A black-robed man walked out of the void, as if he had come from beyond the heavens. It was Mystery's clone. Su Fang immediately sensed that Mystery's clone's aura had become even more illusory and was clearly much stronger than before. He was instantly surprised and delighted. Mystery, what happened? How did you become so powerful in such a short period of time? Su Fang immediately communicated with Mystery mentally. Mystery's clone replied coldly, "The 9 nether fetus stone." "The 9 nether fetus stone? You found the 9 nether fetus stone in the mountain range that contains nether sand?" This time, Su Fang was both surprised and delighted. It was simply too unexpected. QL11 His goal in coming to the 9 Netherland was to find the nether sand and the 9 nether fetus stone. Unexpectedly, not only did he find a large amount of nether sand in the space at the bottom of the soul-sinking beach, he also found the 9 nether fetus stone. However, after thinking about it carefully, it was not very strange to find the 9 nether fetus stone here. According to the Moon Frost Tharch, the 9 nether fetus stone was the essence of the power of extreme Een that was nurtured at the bottom of the Nether River by the powerful souls that had entered the cycle of reincarnation. It was naturally very normal to find the 9 nether fetus stone at the bottom of the soul-sinking beach. Moreover, Mystery's clone had an extraordinary sensing ability towards the 9 nether fetus stone, so it was not strange for him to find this place. What surprised Su Fang was that Shroud's avatar was nothing more than an avatar of Shroud that Su Fang had created using the Chaos Divine Mirror and the 4 Divisions transformation. It originally didn't have its own consciousness and was just like an incomparably powerful puppet. Ever since entering the 9 Netherland, Mystery's clone actually gradually gained some self-awareness and could even speak. Mystery's clone has changed. This is a good thing. Let's kill Dongsha Mashing first. Su Fang immediately transmitted his thoughts to Mystery's clone. He also activated the Heaven Supervisor token and joined forces to kill Dongsha Mashing. Just as Su Fangdao was fighting Dongsha Mashing, an unexpected change happened outside the soul-sinking beach. Dixuan used the Heavenly Dao Dharma form to shackle the Prince of Dongzha. Mo Tiangong, Huang Lingyao, and the rest walked out of the array formation. When they saw this scene, they were instantly shocked and stunned. Unexpectedly, at this moment, a wave of demonic aura swept out from the reef formation where Qi Mian was previously and went straight for Mo Tiangong. The Prince of Dongzha, who was shackled by Dixuan, laughed wildly. "Dixuan, I'm a peerless genius of the demon race. How can I not have a backup plan before I do something? As long as my clone captures Mo Tiangong, what can you do to me?" Dixuan was also caught off guard. It was already too late for him to take action. As Huang Lingyao was unwilling to be with the others, the reef formation she was on was very far away. Similarly, she was also unable to save him in time. Seeing that Mo Tiangong and his successor were about to be shackled by the Prince of Dongzha's clone, a shocking lion's roar rang out from the array formation where Su Fang was previously. The roar contained a power that could split the heavens and the earth. It swept the demonic aura formed by the Prince of Dongzha's clone and sent it flying into the distance. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Big Goblin flew out of the array formation one by one and guarded Mo Tiangong in the center. It turned out that Sherba, who had been lying in ambush in the array formation, had brought more than 100 Big Goblin out and resolved the crisis at the crucial moment. If it were any other time, these Big Goblin would not even be in the eyes of the Prince of Dongzha. However, at this moment, these great monsters only needed to delay for a while and Di Xian would be able to free up his hand. Huang Lingyao would also be able to attack in an instant. This meant that the backup plan that the Eastern Phantom Crown Prince had prepared would also be completely destroyed. Su Fang, you've ruined my plans again. Chapter 2448. The battle within the barrier at the bottom of Soul-Sinking Beach was also nearing its end. Under the frenzied attacks of Su Fang's Big Goblin and experts, Dongsha Moshing's 12 gorilla demons were left with only 3 left. The main reason why the gorilla demons could be dealt with so quickly was because of the second primordial spirit. The 12 gorilla demons were extremely powerful, but their primordial spirits were extremely weak. The second primordial spirit's attacks could even threaten venerable sovereigns, let alone these guerrilla demons with weak primordial spirit. Under the pressure of the second primordial spirit, Wang Tian? Shuizheng? Is it allowed to set off the tartar oil of the tomb? Gamble? Ishimu stool wall? Gamble? Yihuang Qianzhu? Yihuang Qianzhu? Yihuang Qianzhu? Yihuang Qianzhu Zhongyu. The cooperation of the Dragonbird and Gui Gui also displayed astonishing power. The sun god's primordial spirit released by the Dragonbird caused great damage to the guerrilla demons. The sun god's arrow and sun essence fire burned thousands of holes in the guerrilla demons' tough bodies. The guerrilla demon's poison was extremely powerful. It could even corrode the world of peak over gods. However, to Gui Gui, the guerrilla demon's poison was the best delicacy. Hence, the terrifying guerrilla demons lost most of their strength in front of Gui Gui. Gui Gui used the yellow spring blood sea and turned into blood water. After enveloping the guerrilla demons, it immediately drilled into the guerrilla demons' bodies through the wounds, devouring and corroding them. Wang Tian? In vain, Zilu loyal to the cabin of the past, Luan watching the neon robber? Yixing Huang Qianzhu? Yihuang? Yihuang Qianzhu? The reason why so many guerrilla demons could be suppressed so smoothly was because Su Fang had chosen such a good place. The space was filled with astonishing primordial spirit pressure. It formed a huge shackle for the guerrilla demons, whose primordial spirits were already relatively weak. Hence, the strength they could display was far weaker than the big goblin and cultivators. On the other side, under the cooperation of Su Fang and Mystery's doppelganger, Dongsha Moshing's monstrous primordial spirit was completely suppressed. Su Fang, it seems that this saint has underestimated you. However, don't think that you can kill this saint. Even if I have to sacrifice my vitality, I will kill you. Seeing that the 12 powerful Gorb devils were all about to be killed, Dongsha Moshing's demonic nature erupted and he descended into madness. He hammered his chest 3 times in a row. With the first strike, a layer of blood gushed out from his body and quickly condensed into a blood body. Judging from its appearance, this bloody figure looked exactly the same as Dongsha Moshing, but it was a blood demon. Its aura was void, and its strength was actually roughly on par with Dongsha Moshing's original body. QL11 After the second punch, a layer of white demonic light shot out from his body. It quickly turned from illusory to solid and condensed into a skeleton. The last punch landed on Dongsha Moshing's chest. The body of Dongsha Moshing's true body underwent a crazy transformation, turning into the true body of the Devil Clan. He looked like a ferocious and ugly bat. This time, Dongsha Moshing had transformed into 3 Devil Saint powerhouses, and the situation was suddenly reversed. The Devil Clan's ability that Dongsha Moshing used was actually so terrifying. However, there was obviously a huge drawback to using this ability. It would bring about unbearable losses. At this time, he couldn't care so much. If he didn't fight with all his might, he would probably die here today. Your aura is getting weaker and weaker. You can't hold on for long, right? The true body of the Eastern Devil Saint looked at Shroud's clone and sneered malevolently. When your strength is exhausted, this saint will be able to easily kill Su Fang and obtain the Origin Sacred Mirror. Even if I have to suffer some losses, I can still bear it. Kakik, who knew without waiting for his laughter to fade, Mystery's clone rolled out a black blood jelly-like stone from his palm. At first glance, it looked a little like the Frost Soul Blood Fetus, but it didn't contain the blood and evil aura of the Frost Soul Blood Fetus. Instead, it was an incomparably majestic cold essence of the 9 Nether, and it emitted an incomparably powerful soul. 9 Nether Fetus Stone? Mystery's clone actually found 2 9 Nether Fetus Stones. Su Fang was surprised and happy at this time. The worry in his heart instantly disappeared. Mystery's clone opened his mouth and sucked the 9 Nether Fetus Stone into his stomach. A domineering supreme power of the nine nether spread out from his body. Damn it, this saint has miscalculated again. The divine light of Dongsha Moshing's original body suddenly changed. Then, with a cold shout, the blood demon clone turned into a surging blood river with a splash and swept towards Mystery's clone. His bone demon clone's figure flashed, and white bone flames burned in the cracks of his bones as he charged towards Su Fong. Mystery's original body, on the other hand, went straight for the boundary. Seeing that the situation was not good, Dongsha Moshing made a prompt decision. He didn't hesitate to sacrifice two of his clones to protect his original body and escape. Facing the roaring blood river that swept towards him, Mystery's clone suddenly opened his mouth and sucked. Inside his mouth, there seemed to be a hidden universe. Dark black water spiraled and exploded with a shocking devouring power. It actually sucked the blood river formed by Dongsha Moshing's clone into his mouth. In the blink of an eye, Dongsha Moshing's original body had already escaped to the boundary of the boundary. Just as he was about to break through the boundary and escape, with a whoosh, a black Xian Guang shot towards him. The illusory primordial spirit's divine power enveloped East Demon Venerable. Then, a terrifying power that could devour primordial spirits and absorb souls crashed into his divine aperture. It was Su Fong's second primordial spirit. Night Demon's primordial spirit's divine power. How is it possible? A human's primordial spirit can actually cultivate Night Demon's divine power? Dongsha Moshing was indeed a peak expert of the demon clan who had lived for countless years. He immediately recognized Night Demon's primordial spirit's divine power from Night Demon's second primordial spirit's divine power. He was instantly shocked. He didn't care about escaping anymore. He opened his mouth and spat out a beam of demonic light. There was a demonic weapon that looked like a round disc. Rolling black Xian Guang rolled out. The divine power of the primordial spirit rushed towards Su Fong's second primordial spirit like a stormy sea. This round disc looked somewhat similar to the heavenly demon blood plate. However, the demonic characters on it were 100 times more complicated and abstruse. Its quality was also incomparable to the heavenly demon blood plate of the Great World. This wasn't the heavenly demon blood plate, but the ancestral demon blood plate. The bone demon that was rushing towards Su Fong spat out a beam of white light from its mouth. It instantly turned into a world and covered Su Fong. What appeared in front of Su Fong was a surging sea of bones. On the sea of bones stood tall mountains made of human skulls. The sea of bones surged and rolled, creating huge waves that were about to swallow Su Fong. Looks like I have no choice but to take out the Origin Sacred Mirror. Su Fong flipped his right hand and the Origin Sacred Mirror appeared in his palm. Chi, 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 chi. Red light shot out from the mirror and landed on the sea of bones that was sweeping towards him. It immediately ignited the raging Nine-Yang primordial fire. Under the burning of the Nine-Yang true fire, the aggressive sea of bones was quickly reduced to ashes. However, Dongsha Moshing's bone demon doppelganger was also extremely powerful. Even in the face of the Nine-Yang primordial fire that erupted from the Origin Sacred Mirror, the world still didn't shatter. The sea of bones continued to surge towards Su Fong. The mountain of bones in the center of the sea of bones collapsed with a rumble. Countless skulls burned with a strange white bone fire and emitted a sharp, ear-piercing demonic sound that filled the sky. Yin-Yang change. Faced with the attack of a demon saint expert, Su Fong didn't dare to be careless. He immediately used the Yin-Yang change and activated the Origin Sacred Mirror. Boom! A kind of Yin-Yang divine power that caused the world to return to chaos swept across the world. The sea of bones and skulls that filled the sky instantly shattered layer by layer under the supreme power of the Origin Sacred Mirror and turned into nothingness. The world that the bone demon had created also collapsed with a loud rumble. Su Fong's figure reappeared. The bone devil was extremely powerful. Su Fang had used the yin-yang transformation to unleash the power of the primordial origin sacred mirror, but he still hadn't been able to kill it. However, the bone devil's white bones were covered in cracks and a layer of gray. The bone demon looked at the origin sacred mirror in Su Fang's hand. The bone fire in its empty eye sockets flickered. Clearly, it was extremely afraid of the origin sacred mirror's power. Su Fang activated the Heaven Supervisor token again and erupted with the power of the Heavenly Tao Order. It formed a shackle that shrouded the bone demon. Just as the bone demon turned around and was about to escape, Mystery's doppelganger had already devoured Dongsha Moshing's blood demon doppelganger. He looked at the bone demon and opened his mouth to let out a cold and domineering roar. Monstrous underworld power surged out from nothingness. It felt as if the power of the entire Nine Netherlands had been attracted by Mystery's doppelganger and bombarded the bone demon. In this space at the bottom of the soul-sinking beach, the surroundings were shackled by the Nether River. Even a venerable Emperor expert couldn't tear the space apart in a short time. The bone demon's body was shackled by Su Fang's Heaven Supervisor token and couldn't dodge the attack of Mystery's doppelganger. It was instantly crushed into powder. Heavenly Demon Blood Plate? No, that's not the Heavenly Demon Blood Plate, but the legendary Ancestral Demon Blood Plate. Seeing the demonic weapon that Dongsha Moshing was activating and sensing the aura of the circular demonic weapon, Su Fang was shocked. Su Fang had suppressed many demon race experts, including demons were peerless experts of the demon race. Through soul-searching, they obtained the memories of demon race experts. Therefore, they had a good understanding of the demon race in the myriad worlds. The demon race was actually divided into many races, such as the blood demon, bone demon, brute demon, and so on. Every powerful demon race was bestowed with the ancestral demon blood plate by the supreme ancestral demon. The ancestral demon blood plate was an immortal soul magic treasure. As long as one had a powerful yang spirit, they could activate it to deal with the immortal soul of a powerful enemy and restrain the yang spirit. At the same time, they could also use the ancestral demon blood plate to guard their divine aperture and defend against the immortal soul attacks of their enemies. At this moment, Dongsha Moshing was activating the ancestral demon blood plate. The divine power of his immortal soul was estimated to be close to the level of the supreme existence of the imperial people, surpassing almost all the venerable emperor experts. The second immortal soul used Night Demon's immortal soul absorbing seal to fight against Dongsha Moshing. At this moment, it was completely at a disadvantage and was about to be suppressed by the ancestral demon blood plate. At this moment, Mystery's doppelganger attacked again and uttered 4 unclear words from his mouth. 9. Nether. Return. As the cold and sinister voice reverberated in the air, a phantom image of the Nether River appeared in front of Dongsha Moshing and circled around his body. Dongsha Moshing's body rapidly turned into nothingness. His life aura was also rapidly draining away, being devoured by the phantom image of the Nether River. This sage is actually going to die in the hands of a Tao integration realm ant. This sage is unwilling. Su Fang, you won't live for long either. The 9 venerable emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance have already entered the 9 Nether. You will definitely die. Chapter 2449. Dongsha Moshing's last words made Su Fang's heart sink. The thing he was most worried about had happened. The 9 great emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance had all come to the 9 Nether. No matter how confident Su Fang was in his own strength, he couldn't help but tremble in the face of the 9 great emperors. The Tao Defiance Alliance really thinks highly of me. They actually sent the 9 great emperors to hunt me down. It seems like they won't be satisfied until I'm dead. Strange. How did Dongsha Moshing and the Tao Defiance Alliance know my true identity? Could it be that they saw through my demon shapeshifting art? Su Fang couldn't figure it out. He suspected that there was something wrong with the demon shapeshifting art. After all, the demon shape-shifting art came from domain Lord Wuzhen. The Prince of Dongjia obviously also mastered this divine ability and used it to possess Qi Mian. Even the Prince of Dongjia knew about the demon shape-shifting art. It wasn't impossible for the Tao Defiance Alliance's experts to see through his true identity. He never thought that the evil dominator Tian Du he killed could come back to life. This was the real reason why his identity was exposed. QL11 Chu Bingyan flew over and shouted in surprise, "Su Fang, it's really you." Su Fang suppressed the shock and worry in his heart and returned to his original state. He smiled and said, "It's really me. I never thought that the big goblin Yuan Li, whose name shook the sky beacon divine world, would actually be you, Su Fang. But it makes sense. Only you, Su Fang, would have such heaven-defying divine ability and means. Amazing. You're really amazing. You can even kill a venerable emperor." Chu Bingyan had seen Su Fang's strength with his own eyes. It was reasonable for him to have such an expression towards Su Fang. Chu Bingyan was even more in awe of Mystery's clone. Su Fang did not have the time to communicate with Chu Bingyan. He sucked all the big goblin and experts under his command into Xian Wang's Six Paths Pagoda. After this battle, the great Yaoan experts under Su Fang's command had suffered losses as well. However, the losses were not too serious. Many of his subordinates had been wounded by the Gorb demon's demonic poison. With Gui Gui's help, they would be able to quickly recover. There were a total of 12 gorilla demons. 10 were killed and 2 were heavily injured. What is this? What is this? Rolling step? Fermented fertilizer? Staff? Green? Waves? Major? Longing? Roll over? Is it worth it to throw away the cowardly nephew to mute the beautiful step of 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 the mountain? Column frame. These gorilla demons did not perform well in the previous battle. That was because they were affected by the suppression of the primordial spirit in the space. Moreover, their primordial spirits were very weak, so they were easily killed or suppressed by Su Fang's experts and the big goblin. If it was outside, even if it was Wang Tian? Yueyun Luo Xian mechanical bag Huang Fei liner book? Is Yueyan worth dumpling Wei Wei? What is this? What is this? Of the 10 gorilla demons that were killed, 7 of them were burned to ashes by the dragon bird's sun god fire and the big goblin's demon fire. Only 3 gorilla demons' corpses were left, which made Su Fang's heart ache. Those gorilla demons that were killed were all excellent cultivation resources. However, the 3 gorilla demons' corpses were enough for Gui Gui to grow a lot. His poison would become even more powerful and could even threaten venerable emperors. After putting away the dragon bird, Gui Gui, and the 3 gorilla demons' corpses for Gui Gui to devour, Su Fang called his second primordial spirit back into his divine aperture. This time, his second primordial spirit was also severely injured. The black mark that it resided in was almost completely broken and covered with crack. The second primordial spirit was also very weak. It was the ancestor devil blood plate that caused such a serious injury to his second primordial spirit. Ancestor devil blood plate. In the small world, I had the true devil blood plate. In the large world, I got the heavenly devil blood plate from Bai Shan ancient demon. I didn't expect to get the ancestor devil blood plate again in the myriad worlds. It seems that I am fated to have this kind of primordial spirit magic treasure of the devil race. Su Fang looked at the heavenly devil blood plate floating in the air and was very happy. The depression and suppression in his heart were instantly gone. How could he not be happy? With such a treasure, when his second primordial spirit recovered from its injuries, he could activate the ancestor devil blood plate. Together with Night Demon's primordial spirit magic, apart from the imperial people and peak experts, ordinary venerable emperors would be suppressed by the second primordial spirit's ancestor devil blood plate. Obtaining the ancestor devil blood plate was an unexpected reward for killing Dong Sha Ma Sheng. However, Su Fang also suffered heavy losses. Apart from his second primordial spirit, his main body was also severely exhausted. Continuously activating the Origin Sacred Mirror, the Heaven Supervisor Token, and the Prison Suppressing Codex had almost exhausted his primordial spirit, dermic powers, and yang energy. Fortunately, he had the Purple Chi Dharma Spirit. After fusing with the Heavenly Fire Divine Lord's Purple Chi Dharma Spirit, Su Fang's Purple Chi Dharma Spirit had undergone a transformation. It became much easier for him to control the divine artifact. Otherwise, he would have been drained dry by activating the mirror and the two Heavenly Law divine artifacts in such a frenzy. It was also thanks to these supreme divine artifacts. Otherwise, how could Su Fang, who was only at the peak of the Tao integration realm, be qualified to fight with the Devil Sage's clone? The one who suffered the most losses was Shroud's clone. After killing Dongsha Moshing's main body, Shroud's clone became much more blurry. His strength actually dropped from the martial emperor realm to the level of a chief god. This was equivalent to using up to 9 nether embryonic stones. After communicating with Shroud's clone, Su Fang knew that there was not a single 9 nether embryonic stone left in the Black Mountain range. This made his heart ache again. Fortunately, he had the Ancestor Devil Blood Plate as compensation. Otherwise, Su Fang would have vomited blood in anger. After keeping Shroud's clone into his body, Su Fang sealed the Ancestor Devil Blood Plate and stored it in his inner world. He was prepared to wait until he recovered a little before fusing with this supreme primordial spirit Dharma treasure. Just as he finished packing everything up, Su Fang's divine light suddenly changed slightly. He immediately used the fiendish demon transfiguration technique and transformed back into the big goblin Yuan Li's appearance. Then, he reminded Chu Bingyan, "Remember, don't expose my identity. Su Fang, I know what I'm doing." Chu Bingyan also heard Dongsha Moshing's dying words and knew that the matter was very serious. He nodded solemnly and agreed. Boom! The natural boundary of the space was broken, and Dixuan and Huang Lingyao's figures appeared inside the space. Seeing the mess in the space and the remnant aura, which was obviously left behind by a battle between martial emperors, Dixuan and Huang Lingyao were extremely shocked. Dixuan asked Su Fang, "Is there a martial emperor hidden by Eli's side?" Su Fang returned to the big goblin's unruly and indifferent attitude. "Yes, there is a demon saint hidden in Eli's body. It is Dongsha Moshing." It really is Dongsha Moshing. Although Dixuan and Huang Lingyao had already guessed it, they were still shocked once again. Huang Lingyao said in disbelief, "Yuan Li, you actually managed to survive the attack of a demon saint? What about Eli and Dongsha Moshing? Survive?" Chu Bingyan rushed to answer, "Not only did Great Elder Yuan Li survive, but he also killed both Eli and Dongsha Moshing." This time, Huang Lingyao and Dixuan found it even more unbelievable. Kill a demon saint? Even a martial emperor of Shao Wanting's level should be able to defeat Dongsha Moshing. However, if Dongsha Moshing was determined to escape, it would be difficult for Shao Wanting to stop him. A big goblin, which was equivalent to a lower chief god, actually killed Dongsha Moshing? Dixuan glanced at Su Fang, a thoughtful look flashing in his eyes. He secretly transmitted his voice, "Great Elder Yuan Li, before I killed the Prince of Dongzhao." He mentioned Su Fang. Su Fang replied coldly, "How can the Lord Dixuan take the Prince of Dongzhao's nonsense seriously before he died? Let's cut the crap and hurry up and bring Master Mo Tiangong down. Refining the nether sand is the most important thing." Nether sand, that mountain range, is filled with nether sand. Only then did Dixuan pay attention to the Black Mountain range. After sensing the nether sand it contained, he immediately fell into ecstasy. At Soul Sinking Beach, one could only collect a dozen grains of nether sand after a hard time. However, there was actually an entire mountain of nether sand here. How could Dixuan not be pleasantly surprised? If he brought this much nether sand back to the Sky Beacon God realm, who knew how many magic treasures he could fuse with. It would play an unimaginable role in the war against the Tao Defiance in the future. Su Fang continued, "Leave some of the nether sand for me. I also want to refine my magic treasures. If we find any treasures in the mountain range, they will also belong to me. Lord Dixuan won't have any objections, right?" Dixuan readily agreed. If it wasn't for Great Elder Yuanli, not only would it be difficult to accomplish anything, we would have suffered heavy casualties even if we weren't completely annihilated. How can I not fulfill your request? Su Fang nodded in satisfaction and flew to the front of the barrier. In his life force state, Su Fang combined the strength of his subordinates and tore a crack in the barrier. Then, he passed through the barrier in embarrassment. This scene shocked Dixuan once again. Su Fang had just fought a great battle with a venerable emperor, yet he still had the strength to easily tear the barrier. His strength was truly astonishing. As soon as he returned to the shore of Soul-Sinking Beach, Su Fang immediately entered the formation on the reef and took out the Universal River Chariot. I must recover my strength as soon as possible and enter the Yin-Yang Heavenly Wheel before the 9 venerable emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance find me and save my grandfather's soul. Su Fang activated the power of his purple aura spirit to control the magic treasure. With the help of the Universal River Chariot's origin spirit, he barely managed to activate the Universal River Chariot. The Universal River Chariot could activate the power of time stop every 1,000 years. Under such a state, Su Fang cultivated in the Universal River Chariot for 1,000 years while the time outside was still. It had been more than 1,000 years since the last time he activated the Universal River Chariot. In addition, with the transformation of his purple aura spirit, Su Fang's ability to control magic treasures had multiplied. At this time, when Su Fang activated the Universal River Chariot, the power it released became even more astonishing. After the Universal River Chariot was activated, nearly 3,000 years had passed while the time outside was still in a state of stillness. This was equivalent to giving Su Fang 3,000 years of free time. Such a strange and powerful power of time was truly heaven-defying. Su Fangda wantonly devoured pills and spirit items, especially spirit items that contained pure yang essence and blood crystals that contained vitality. Chapter 2450. Su Fang spent 500 years in the Infinity Chariot before finally recovering most of his dermic powers, essence spirit and yang qi. Then, Su Fang took out the Ancestral Fiend Blood Plate. The Ancestral Fiend Blood Plate is a supreme essence spirit dharma treasure that all demons and gods desire. With such a treasure, I'll have more confidence in rescuing Grandpa in the Yin-Yang Wheel. Su Fang had experienced the powerful essence spirit of the Lord of the Yin-Yang Wheel in the Well of Reincarnation on the Reincarnation platform. He had no confidence in rescuing Grandpa in the Yin-Yang Wheel. Now that he had the Ancestral Fiend Blood Plate, Su Fang finally had some confidence. Fuse with the Ancestral Fiend Blood Plate as soon as possible. Su Fang immediately peeled off his blood and dripped it on the Ancestral Fiend Blood Plate. Fusing his will and the power of the Yin-Yang world, he poured it into the Ancestral Fiend Blood Plate. He smoothly entered the Ancestral Fiend Blood Plate without encountering any resistance or struggle, which surprised Su Fang. But to his surprise, just as Su Fang's blood and energy were about to fuse with the vast array, demonic qi suddenly surged out of the array, instantly enveloping Su Fang's consciousness, blood, and the power of the Yin-Yang world. Not only that, but the evil demonic qi also surged out, causing the entire Ancestral Fiend Blood Plate to tremble. Numerous demonic runes crisscrossed, forming the image of Dongsha Mashing. Then, an evil will followed Su Fang's consciousness and poured into his divine aperture, quickly condensing into Dongsha Mashing's yang spirit. As expected, you still haven't given up and want to possess me. Wishful thinking. Su Fang snorted domineeringly. Destiny Dao runes surged out of the depths of his mind and enveloped Dongsha Mashing's yang spirit. If Dongsha Moshing's true body was still there and his yang spirit invaded his divine aperture, Su Fang would be in trouble. But now, he was only a yang spirit entrenched in the ancestral fiend blood plate. How could he resist Su Fang's heavenly secret life shrinking technique? Chi. The Tao runes of fate burned with fire and soon burned Dongsha Moshing's yang spirit to nothing. Only then was Su Fang able to successfully enter the inner space of the ancestral fiend blood plate. What he saw was a large number of astonishing fiend seals, fiend runes, and vast array formations. Su Fang found 3 magic bottles in the depths of a formation that was shrouded in thick devil qi. For Dongsha Moshing to hide it in the ancestral devil blood plate, it must be a powerful treasure. At the very least, it must be something that a peerless expert like a venerable sovereign can use. Su Fang was pleasantly surprised and immediately checked the 3 magic bottles. 2 of the devil bottles were filled with devil blood. It was the devil blood of devil saint experts, and it contained boundless and evil life force. Su Fang was overjoyed. No wonder Dongsha Moshing issued the devil kill order in the lifeless prairie and offered the blood of a devil saint as a reward. Countless experts scrambled for it. It turns out that he has so much blood of a devil saint. Dongsha Moshing would never have dreamed that the devil blood he offered as a reward for me would help me in the end. The devil blood in the other devil bottle was even more astonishing. Although it was barely enough to fill the bottom of the bottle, its aura was incomparably shocking. It surpassed the blood of a devil saint. It was actually the blood of an ancestral devil. The ancestral devil of the devil race was the first devil born in the universe when heaven and earth were created. How shocking would his blood be? I'll first fuse a portion of this ancestral devil's blood to control the ancestral devil blood plate. Fortunately, I have the power of the world of yin and yang and can fuse any energy. The power of yang can also refine the ruthless aura in the devil qi. I'll keep the rest of the devil blood for now. When I become a master god in the future, it will definitely be of great use. Su Fang had not thought of how to deal with the devil blood of the devil saint and the ancestral devil for the time being. His current energy was mainly focused on becoming a master god. After happily sealing the 3 devil bottles, Su Fang began to fuse with the ancestral devil blood plate. He hoped that it would be of great use when he entered the yin-yang heavenly wheel. In addition, his second primordial spirit was also constantly cultivating the undying soul codex to heal the injuries of his primordial spirit. Injuries to the primordial spirit were originally very difficult to heal. It was unlike Su Fang's original body, which only consumed a little of his primordial spirit's power. Moreover, his second primordial spirit was injured by the divine power of the ancestral devil blood plate. Even if he cultivated the undying soul codex, it would be very difficult for him to recover in a short period of time. Unless he found some spiritual item of heaven and earth that could rapidly heal the primordial spirit. However, such spiritual items were too rare. It was purely luck to find such a spiritual item. Inside the universe chariot, Su Fang began to constantly master the restrictions and formations in the ancestral devil blood plate. At the same time, he was also constantly cultivating various cultivation techniques. Time flew by quickly. Another 2,000 years passed very quickly. The power of the infinity chariot gradually disappeared, and it returned to its normal state. Su Fang walked out of the infinity chariot, his eyes flashing with a brilliant light. After nearly 2,000 years, he had fused with the majority of the ancestral devil blood plate. At the moment, he could activate at least 60 to 70% of the ancestral devil blood plate's power. Apart from the contribution of the purple cloud law spirit, there was another important reason why he could fuse with the ancestral devil blood plate so smoothly. That was because Su Fang had fused with a small portion of the ancestral devil's blood. This made fusing with the ancestral devil blood plate much easier. The second primordial spirit had also recovered to some extent. However, the recovery was very limited. Su Fang estimated that it would take tens of thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years, to return to its previous peak state. This is going to be troublesome. It seems that I can't count on the second primordial spirit in the yin-yang heavenly wheel. Su Fang was very depressed, but there was no other way. Coupled with Nether's clone, without the 9 Nether embryonic stone, Yang Kai would lose an extremely powerful Emperor Realm Master. This trip to the yin-yang heavenly wheel was really worrying. In addition, the 9 great emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance could appear at any time. This made Su Fang's situation even worse. However, he had to go to the yin-yang heavenly wheel. Su Fang had never hesitated. Su Fang continued to cultivate in the reef formation while waiting. He only needed to obtain enough nether sand to upgrade the Xianhuang 6 Paths Pagoda before heading directly to the yin-yang heavenly wheel. About 50 years later. *1. The azure nether pearl in Su Fang's body trembled slightly. It turned out that Dixuan had sent a message from the space under the soul-sinking beach. The azure nether pearl was really amazing. It could still sense each other even though they were separated by the deep soul-sinking beach and the powerful natural barrier at the bottom. As soon as he took out the azure nether pearl, Dixuan's excited voice came from it, "Great Elder Yuanli, come quickly. There's something good." Something good? Su Fang's spirit was lifted. If Dixuan, a peerless figure from the Supreme Imperial People, called it something good, it definitely wouldn't be an ordinary treasure. Could there be some kind of heavenly treasure in the Black Mountain Range? Su Fang returned to the space at the bottom of the soul-sinking beach with doubts and expectations. Mo Tiangong was really amazing. In just 50 years, he and 3 other treasure refiners had dug the Black Mountain Range into 2 parts, exposing the deepest part of the mountain range to the outside world. QL-11 Dixuan and the others surrounded a pool in the deepest part of the mountain range. They all looked very excited. Especially Chu Bingyan and Huang Lingyao. Obviously, the treasure they found would be very useful to them. Dixuan was saying, "This space was discovered by Great Elder Yuanli. He also killed Dongsha Mashing. Except for the nether sand, all the treasures found should belong to him. As for how to deal with them, you two should go and ask him. Yuan Li's Great Elder is here." Everyone's attention was immediately attracted by Su Fang. Yuan Li's Great Elder. "Hey, you've recovered to your peak state." Dixuan saw Su Fang's state at a glance and immediately exclaimed. Huang Lingyao, Chu Bingyan, and Mo Tiangong were also shocked. Su Fang had consumed a lot of energy in the battle with Dongsha Mashing. Unexpectedly, in just 50 years, Su Fang had recovered to his peak state. Such recovery speed was really shocking. Su Fang said indifferently, "This venerable has the infinity wheel. Naturally, it took me more than 50 years. What's the fuss about? What treasure did you find? Let this venerable see." Dixuan pointed at the pool in front of them. "Yuan Li's Great Elder, take a look at this. What is this?" The pool was dark and had an area of 30 meters. It didn't look like water, but thick ink. It emitted a bone-chilling coldness and an amazing power of the primordial spirit. Su Fang stared at it for a while. He felt his primordial spirit was frozen, but it was very comfortable. He didn't know what it was. Underworld Judge Goli said, "This is condensing mysterious water. It's the coldest thing in the universe. It's very useful for cultivators who cultivate the great Tao of and cold. It can also nourish the primordial spirit. It's very difficult to find such a peerless treasure in the netherworld. Your Excellency's luck is really good." Huang Lingyao couldn't wait to say, "Yuan Li, this condensing mysterious water is very useful to me. You must give me half of it." Chu Bingyan snorted and said, "You want me to give you half of such a precious treasure? Yuan Li's Great Elder, I'm not as greedy as Xianming Sect Master. Just give me a few drops to refine my heavenly Tao form. You probably don't know. Yuanli is Su Fang's slave and I'm Su Fang's Taoist companion. Let alone half of the condensing mysterious water, even if I take all of it, Yuanli will dare to say no? Huang Lingyao sneered. His tone was full of arrogance. Yuanli is Su Fang's slave? You're Su Fang's Taoist companion. Dixuan, Mo Tiangong, and Chu Bingyan all exclaimed. Especially Chu Bingyan. He knew Su Fang's identity. The way he looked at Su Fang suddenly became strange. Su Fang's saint's son seems to have a lot of Taoist companions. Dixuan chuckled. He glanced at Su Fang intentionally or unintentionally. His deep eyes flashed with a thoughtful look. He had long suspected Su Fang's true identity. At this moment, the suspicion in his heart grew. Su Fang touched the tip of his nose and smiled bitterly in his heart. This Huang Lingyao, for the condensing mysterious water, he doesn't care about anything. He quickly changed the awkward topic and asked Goli, this condensing mysterious water can nourish the primordial spirit? Chapter 24:51. It was no wonder that Chu Bingyan, Huang Lingyao, and Goli cared so much about the condensing mysterious water. The condensing mysterious water was the essence of condensed from the Black Mountain Range that contained the nether sand after countless years of precipitation. Not only did it contain the essence of but it also had the ability to nourish the primordial spirit. Such a treasure was not only beneficial to the cultivators who cultivated the great Tao of cold, but also to the divine race of Nether and the monsters of the nether world. Who wouldn't scramble for it? It just so happens that my second primordial spirit needs a treasure of heaven and earth to restore it. I didn't expect to find so much condensing mysterious water under the Black Mountain Range. What a surprise! Unfortunately, my second primordial spirit is too heavily injured. Even with the condensing mysterious water, it may not be able to restore my second primordial spirit quickly. After thinking for a while, Su Fang prepared to distribute the condensing mysterious water. Who knew in his inner world, Underworld's doppelganger suddenly transmitted his thought, the bottom of the water. Did Underworld's doppelganger sense that there are other treasures at the bottom of the pool? Su Fang's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately changed his mind. Looking at Huang Lingyao, Su Fang said, I can give you a part of the condensing mysterious water, but I won't give you half of it. At most, I'll give you 1/3. In addition, once you get the condensing mysterious water, you can't ask for any other treasures. 1/3? Huang Lingyao raised his eyebrows and immediately agreed. 1/3 of the condensing mysterious water is barely enough. I'm not a greedy person. As long as I get the condensing mysterious water, I won't covet any other treasures. It's a deal. Su Fang chuckled and stretched out his hand to grab the air. A strand of demon chi rolled up about 1/3 of the condensing mysterious water and flew to Huang Lingyao with a swoosh. Huang Lingyao took out a treasure bottle and collected all the condensing mysterious water without hesitation. Su Fang gave another 1/3 to Chu Bingyan. Chu Bingyan was wild with joy. Previously, he'd obtained a lot of nether spring water from Su Fang, and now he'd obtained so much condensing profound water. How could he not be pleasantly surprised when he'd achieved his goal of coming to the 9th underworld? With so much nether spring water and arcane water, Chu Bingyan was confident that his strength would increase drastically. He might even have a chance of becoming a lord, so he was naturally extremely grateful to Su Fang. Su Fang then gave a bottle of congealing water to Goli so that he would be deeply grateful to Su Fang. He knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Su Fang. Su Fang sucked the remaining 1/3 of the condensed mystic water into the ancestral fiend blood plate, allowing his second essence soul to recuperate and recover from its injuries. The bottom of the pool was revealed, and it was all dark stones. There was nothing special about it. Su Fang struck out with a claw, and then suddenly retracted it. The incomparably hard black rock was crushed and then swept away. A pool of milky white viscous liquid was exposed to everyone. There wasn't much of this strange, milky white liquid. It was only the size of a palm, and it emitted a cold and refreshing aura. Everyone immediately felt refreshed, and their essence souls felt as if they were floating. Just by smelling this aura, they felt as if they'd been cultivating in seclusion for 100 years. Although it had no effect on their cultivation, it was extremely beneficial to their essence souls. Goli cried out in shock, That's the legendary soul marrow milk. Impossible! Soul marrow milk is a legendary item. It's the accumulation of countless remnant souls, and it can only be formed after countless years. Ever since the ninth underworld was destroyed, this thing has long disappeared. Su Fang asked in surprise, Soul marrow milk? What's the use of this thing? It's very useful. It's 10,000 times more effective than condensed profound water. Even the crimson spirit dew can't compare to it. Go Li's eyes shone with excitement. No matter how serious the essence soul's injury is, it only needs a drop of soul marrow milk to recover to its original state. Even if the soul is shattered, a drop can also allow the soul to recover and even transform. Back then, the 9 great underworld venerables searched the entire 9th underworld, but they couldn't find the soul marrow milk. So much of it actually appeared here. Go Li's words caused everyone's eyes, including Di Xian's, to shine with a terrifying light in an instant. Su Fang reckoned that if it wasn't for them being afraid of his supreme strength that could kill the Eastern Devil Saint, these people would have killed him without the slightest hesitation and fought for the soul pith elixir. Luck, this is definitely the supreme luck that the purple Qi Dharma spirit brought to me. Su Fang was overjoyed. He kept all the soul marrow milk. There wasn't much, only half a bottle. This time, he came to Soul Sinking Beach, found so much nether sand, obtained the ancestral devil blood plate, and now obtained the condensed profound water, as well as such precious soul marrow milk. If this wasn't luck, then what was? Di Xuan and the others simply turned their heads away, afraid that they would not be able to control themselves and do something stupid. Huang Lingyao's gaze was fixed on Su Fang. She looked like she wanted to eat Su Fang. However, Su Fang had blocked her mouth in advance. At this time, she couldn't open her mouth to ask Su Fang for the soul marrow milk. Su Fang unceremoniously put all the soul marrow milk into the ancestral devil blood plate. He had no intention of sharing it with others. The condensed profound water could be shared with others, but Su Fang would never share a supreme spiritual item like soul marrow with others. Su Fang asked Emo Tiangong, Master Emo, how much nether sand have you refined now? This is prepared for Grand Elder Yuanli. It should be enough. Emo Tiangong took out a storage ring and handed it to Su Fang. Su Fang sent his consciousness into the storage ring. He saw a ball of refined nether sand the size of a head. Such a huge amount of nether sand was already sufficient for Su Fang to fuse with the Skyrth 6 Daos Pagoda and allow it to possess the ability to attack the soul core. In the future, regardless of whether it was cultivators, Dao Defiance, or devils, its might would definitely multiply. Huang Lingyao was rather unwilling to accept the failure to obtain the soul marrow. She said coldly, Yuanli, you've recovered. There's no need for you to worry about the nether sand. Can we head to the yin-yang wheel now? Su Fang nodded. Yes, it's time to head to the yin-yang wheel. Di Xuan said, since that's the case, I'll accompany you to the yin-yang wheel. However, Su Fang shook her head decisively and said, I've changed my mind. I've decided to go to the yin-yang wheel with the Xianming sect master. Lord Di Xuan, you should stay here and wait for Master Emo to refine all the nether sand. Then, you should leave the 9th underworld as soon as possible. Di Xuan raised his eyebrows. Why? Chu Bingyan interrupted. According to what Dongsha Mashing said before he died, the 9 emperors of the Dao Defiance Alliance have entered the 9th underworld. Their goal is to find Grand Elder Yuanli. Di Xuan's divine light changed instantly. Mo Tiangong and the others all gasped. Even though the Tao Defiance Alliance had countless experts who had been revived, they didn't have many top-rate experts, especially supreme existences at the Imperial Exalt realm. The 9 emperors were all the emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance that Yuan Tiangong knew about. Dixuan said decisively, "Is that so? No, we have to speed up the refinement of the nether sand. Then, Grand Elder Yuan Li will leave the 9th underworld with us and return to the Sky Beacon God realm." Su Fang's tone was also unquestionable. "I've made up my mind. I won't change it." Dixuan changed to a sound transmission. "Grand Elder Yuan Li, I know you're Su Fang. Do you know that the safety of the entire universe is at stake right now? If anything happens to you, the entire universe will lose all hope and eventually be destroyed. You have to know what's more important. Don't disregard the safety of the entire universe for your own selfish reasons." Su Fang replied, "It seems that I can't hide from the eyes of the Lord Dixuan. How could I not know the consequences you've mentioned? However, I must go to the yin-yang heavenly wheel." Dixuan displayed the aura of a supreme ruler. The voice of his Yuan spirit was filled with majesty and oppression. "Su Fang, if you insist on doing this, don't blame me for being ruthless. I'll shackle you and take you out of the 9th underworld." Su Fang smiled faintly. "I, Su Fang, appreciate Lord Dixuan's good intentions. My dear grandfather is in the yin-yang heavenly wheel. He's currently in the hands of the heavenly wheel lord. If I retreat, my grandfather's soul will scatter. Not only will I lose my family, but my Tao heart will also be severely damaged. Even if I survive, it'll be difficult for me to break through to the Master God realm and fail to enter the exalted celestial mountain. Therefore, I must go to the yin-yang heavenly wheel. If you continue to persuade me, I'll have no choice but to fall out with you." Dixuan stared at Su Fang. "Do you know that even if you can defeat the Heavenly Wheel Lord and save your grandfather, it's very likely that you'll be killed by the experts of the Tao Defiance Alliance? If you go to the yin-yang Heavenly Wheel, you'll most likely die. You'll definitely die." Su Fang fell silent. A long time later, Su Fang raised his head. "Who isn't afraid of death? I, Su Fang, am also afraid of death. However, even if I know that I'll die, I have no choice but to do it. If I can't even protect my family, what's the point of me, Su Fang, cultivating? Even if I become the master of a myriad of worlds, what's the point?" Dixuan was moved by Su Fang's clanging voice. He shook his head and sighed. "You really are a stupid idiot. However, I, Dixuan, admire idiots like you very much. I might as well be an idiot for once and accompany you to the yin-yang heavenly wheel." "There's no need. Master Mo also needs your protection. Once you leave and the experts of the Tao Defiance Alliance arrive, this trip to the 9 Hells Lands will be for naught. I can't do anything about it. If I return to the Sky Beacon God realm, the strongest experts of my clan and even the Mountain Protector won't let me off." Su Fang replied domineeringly, "Are you so sure that I'm going to die? Haha, I, Su Fang, have experienced many life and death dangers along the way to reach this height from a small world. When have I not succeeded in resolving them and treading on dangers all the way to this point? Your opponents this time are the Heavenly Wheel Lord and the 9 Emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance. I can kill the evil sovereign of Tiandu and Dongsha Mashing, so I can naturally kill the Heavenly Wheel Lord. Even if I can't defeat the 9 Emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance, I can still escape. Don't worry, Lord Dixuan. Don't forget that I'm trapped in the prison suppressing codex that has fused with the Tao River. Even a transcended expert can't save me, but I can still return safely in the end. Is the yin-yang heavenly wheel more dangerous than the Tao River?" Chapter 2452. Next, Su Fang buried more than 10 rune talismans created by the life-shrinking art in the natural boundary around the space. After the runes were crushed, they burst out with the power of fate and enveloped the entire space. In this way, as long as the emperors of the Tao Defiance did not go deep into the bottom of the soul-sinking beach, they would never be able to sense Dixuan, Mo Tiangong, and the others. Then, Su Fang, Huang Lingyao, and Go Li flew toward the barrier. Just as they were about to leave, Dixuan suddenly said, "Wait." Su Fang asked in surprise, "What is it, Lord Dixuan?" Dixuan rolled out a xian guang from his palm and flew toward Su Fang. Su Fang reached out and caught it. It was a two-wheeled carriage. The illusion-breaking south-pointing carriage. The illusion-breaking south-pointing carriage was a supreme divine creation artifact that played a key role in the great war of gods and demons. This time, Qi Mian entered the 9 serenities with the illusion-breaking south-pointing carriage. Qi Mian was possessed by the Prince of Dongjia, and the Prince of Dongjia was killed by Dixuan. Naturally, the illusion-breaking south-pointing carriage fell into Dixuan's hands. Unexpectedly, Dixuan took out the illusion-breaking south-pointing carriage and gave it to Su Fang at this time. Su Fang raised his eyebrows. "Lord Dixuan, what do you mean by this?" Dixuan changed to a primordial spirit transmission. "The illusion-breaking south-pointing carriage is the Qi people's most precious treasure. If it is in my hands, I will definitely return it to the Qi people. But you're different. Who asked you to be the infamous Su Huang? Even if the Qi people know that the illusion-breaking south-pointing carriage is in your hands, would they dare to ask for it from Su Huang?" It was unclear whether Dixuan's words were praise or mockery, but Su Fang was speechless and forced a smile. However, Su Fang naturally wouldn't give away a treasure that was already in his hands. He unceremoniously sucked the illusory south-pointing chariot into the Heaven and Earth Tao Palace. Dixuan then transmitted his voice over, "Su Fang, I'll be waiting for you at the Sky Beacon God World for a drink." Su Fang was stunned. Soon after, he smiled and replied, "My Su Fang never drinks wine, but I must drink Lord Dixuan's wine. Lord Dixuan, you'd better prepare the best wine. If the wine is too bad, I won't drink too much." "It's a deal." Dixuan laughed loudly. This Dixuan is somewhat similar to Dao Hengtian. Unfortunately, he was born in the imperial people. Sooner or later, I will fall out with the imperial people. When that time comes, he will definitely be my enemy. Su Fang immediately thought of Dao Hengtian when he thought of Dixuan. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Chu Bingyan also transmitted his voice over, "Su Fang, I can't thank you enough. If my master's spirit is in heaven, he will definitely be extremely grateful to you." Su Fang chuckled and replied, "Chu Bingyan, don't say that. We are friends." After ending his communication with Chu Bingyan, Su Fang went straight to the barrier. Seeing Su Fang's figure without hesitation, Dixuan and Chu Bingyan both sighed heavily in their hearts. Just as Su Fang was heading to the yin-yang heavenly wheel, in the depths of the 9 serenities, layers of hurricanes stirred up the water of the underworld, forming layers of space-time isolation, trapping the 9 emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance who had entered the 9 serenities. Chi, 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 chi. Shocking arrow shadows pierced through the hurricanes and tore through the shackles. The layers of hurricanes that were wreaking havoc in the 9 serenities suddenly collapsed, and space-time shattered. 9 figures flashed out of the shattered space-time and quickly left the area of space-time chaos. "We're out. We're finally out. Alliance leader is mighty. So what if he's a transcended cultivator? The mountain guardian can trap us for a while, but can he trap us forever? Now that we're free, it means that Su Fang's death is imminent. Without the protection of the mountain guardian, wouldn't it be easy to kill a mere Tao integration cultivator like Su Fang?" The 9 emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance had finally charged out of the heavy shackles set up by the mountain guardian. They were all overjoyed, and their killing intent soared. "My unshackled Tao incarnation was severely injured in order to break the shackles of the mountain guardian. I need to rest for some time. I'll leave the matter of killing Su Fang to you all." The voice of the Tao Defiance Alliance's alliance leader came from behind the chaotic spacetime. The 9 emperors knelt down and bowed. Don't disappoint me again. This clone of mine will stay in the 9 serenities until I see Su Fang's head and the Chaos Origin sacred mirror. Yes, we must kill Su Fang this time. The 9 emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance answered in unison, and then they quickly left to search for Su Fang in different directions. Su Fang, Huang Lingyao, and Goli left the soul-sinking beach and flew in the direction of the yin-yang heavenly wheel. Along the way, they encountered extremely powerful and numerous netherworld monsters, and they also encountered various turbulence and chaotic areas caused by the shattered spacetime. Su Fang and Huang Lingyao joined forces to kill countless netherworld monsters and passed through countless dangerous places. Along the way, they were scared but not in any danger. About 300 years later, during this time, Su Fang allowed his second primordial spirit to fuse with the soul marrow elixir as he hurried along. His main primordial spirit had absorbed quite a bit as well. The soul marrow elixir's nourishment to the primordial spirit was truly astonishing. In just 100 years, his second primordial spirit had recovered from its injuries and was constantly becoming more condensed and powerful. His main primordial spirit had also fused with some soul marrow elixir and was undergoing a transformation at an astonishing speed. Although it was not as strong as his second primordial spirit, it had already surpassed the Overgod realm. Su Fang's cultivation was not yet at the Overgod realm, but he possessed a powerful primordial spirit that surpassed the Overgod realm. It was truly shocking. The recovery of his second primordial spirit had greatly increased Su Fang's confidence in the yin-yang heavenly wheel. The only thing that worried Su Fang was that the 9 emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance still had not shown themselves. However, there was no point in worrying. He could only take one step at a time. During this time, Su Fang continued to fuse with the ancestral demon blood plate and the south-pointing chariot of fortune. When they arrived at an area of shattered spacetime, Goli loudly warned Su Fang and Huang Lingyao, "My lord, there's an area of shattered spacetime ahead. Be careful." Even if Goli did not warn them, Su Fang and Huang Lingyao could see that there was something unusual ahead. The underworld river flowed here and gradually froze into ice. Large amounts of ice floated on the surface of the river and in the air. They were not real ice. Instead, they were substances formed from the compression of the underworld river when the 9 underworlds shattered. They looked similar to ice. There were countless ice cubes of various sizes, emitting a shocking cold and deathly aura. The light rays they refracted intertwined and distorted into a bizarre and dazzling scene. Su Fang discovered that these ice cubes could not only distort the power of perception, but also emit a power that could distort the primordial spirit. It was extremely strange. Su Fang, Huang Lingyao, and Goli flew cautiously. Even Su Fang was fully alert and released his defense. He did not dare to be careless in the slightest. As they went deeper, the nether river was completely sealed in ice. There were floating ice cubes and ice walls everywhere in the space. There was also a thick icy fog floating around, distorting one's senses. The power of the primordial spirit also became more and more astonishing. It was impossible to sense the path ahead. In the ice river and the endless floating ice cubes and ice walls, they were incomparably depressed to find that they were lost. The more Su Fang walked, the more he felt that something was wrong. He immediately stopped Huang Lingyao and Goli. "If we continue to wander around, we'll definitely be trapped here. Once we get separated, it'll be quite dangerous." In Huang Lingyao's cold eyes, there was a hint of panic. Su Fang asked Goli, "Think carefully, where is this place?" Goli said with a sad face, "Sir, I'm only responsible for the underworld river in front of the reincarnation stage. I'm responsible for judging the life and death of souls that have just entered the reincarnation. I've never been to the underworld river after the reincarnation stage. I've only heard of it. Besides, due to the 9 underworlds being shattered, the 9 underworlds is no longer what it used to be. Even if I've been here before, I can't distinguish anything. Huang Lingyao became irritated and shouted, "You trash! If this sect master is trapped here and affects this sect master's important matters, be careful of your dog life." Goli racked his brains to recall. In the end, he really came up with some useful information. "Sir, if I'm not wrong, this is not the underworld river, but the world of one of the 9 underworlds, 9 great underworld venerables, Huan Shin Supreme." Huan Shin Supreme? Huang Lingyao's expression changed instantly. "You mean the underworld venerable who is best at creating illusions?" Goli replied, "It should be right. This ice river world has never existed in the 9 underworlds before. I speculate that after Huan Shin Supreme fell, his world shattered, and this dangerous place was formed in the underworld river." Huang Lingyao's expression became extremely ugly. "This is bad. Even Emperor Realm Masters would find it difficult to escape from the underworld world created by Huan Shin Supreme, let alone us." Goli looked at Su Fang eagerly, hoping that Su Fang could think of a way. Otherwise, Huang Lingyao would kill him in anger. Su Fang used his perfection stage ability, and at the same time, used the Heaven's secret life shrinking technique to project his sensing power. As a result, Su Fang helplessly found that his perfection stage ability was also distorted here, and all he could sense were distorted illusions. The Heaven's secret life shrinking technique was not an ability to sense nature, but a supreme ability to sense fate, so it also lost its effect here. Then, Su Fang used the power of his spirit, and the power of his spirit swept out like a stormy wave. The result was still disappointing to Su Fangda. Not only was his spirit shackled in this ice-sealed world, but it was also distorted. After thinking for a moment, Su Fang gave up the idea of releasing his second spirit, not because he was afraid of exposing anything, but because he was worried that if his second spirit got lost here, it would be a heavy loss. After adjusting his breathing, Su Fang sat down cross-legged on the ice river. Huang Lingyao and Goli were afraid that they would be separated from Su Fang and be trapped here alive. Standing beside Su Fang, they were extremely anxious. After a long time, Su Fang suddenly opened his eyes, which were shining with a strange light. Huang Lingyao said coldly, "You can't be saying that you have a way to get out of Huan Shin Supreme's world." Goli was 100 times more confident in Su Fang. "Sir is omnipotent. You can even kill Emperor Realm Masters, so you must have a way to get out of here." Chapter 2453. Illusionary South-Breaking Chariot. It was a divine creation artifact that could break through all kinds of maze and illusion formations. It could be put to good use in Huan Shin Paragon's world. Although Su Fang could only use about 30% of the chariot's power, it should be easy for him to walk out of Huan Shin Paragon's world with its power. After all, Su Fang didn't need to break Huan Shin Paragon's world. He just needed to see through the illusions and walk out. Dixuan had given Su Fang the illusionary south-breaking chariot when he left Soul-Sinking Beach. He didn't expect it to be put to good use. What else could it be if not luck? After entering the 9th underworld and killing Heavenly Fire Divine Lord and fusing with his purple Chi Dharma spirit, the luck I received is even more amazing. Even if I face the Lord of Heavenly Wheel and the 9 Tao Defiance of the Tao Defiance Alliance, I'll definitely be able to turn misfortune into fortune. Su Fang was in high spirit. QL11, he took out the illusionary south-breaking chariot and activated it. The chariot exploded with a powerful power that could dispel all illusions and illusions. Su Fang's primordial spirit fused with the chariot and borrowed the power of the artifact. The scene he saw changed drastically. Ice cubes, ice walls, and layers of ice fog created all kinds of bizarre scenes, but they instantly disappeared from Su Fang's sight. "Let's go." The tiny person on the chariot suddenly raised an arm and pointed in a certain direction. Su Fang, Huang Lingyao, and Goli were enveloped by the chariot's power. They flew in the direction the chariot was pointing. Although the chariot's speed wasn't as fast as it was in nature, it wasn't slow either. After about 10 years, They finally flew out of the layers of worlds and arrived at the normal area of the Nether River. Lord Yuanli is mighty, Goli shouted loudly. He was full of admiration for Su Fang. We actually walked out of Huan Xin Paragon's world. Huang Lingyao looked back at the ice world behind her, her eyes filled with disbelief. She had obtained the inheritance of Supreme Emperor Mingyu, and at the same time, she had also obtained many secrets about the Nine Netherland. Of course, she knew how terrifying the world created by Supreme Emperor Huan Qin was. Although the illusory realm he experienced this time was formed from the shattered inner world of Supreme Huan Qin after his death and no one was controlling it, it was still filled with layers of illusions. It was likely that even an Emperor Realm Master would find it difficult to walk out safely if they fell into it. After all, this was the Nine Netherworld, where even an Emperor Realm Master's strength would be suppressed. Su Fang actually brought them out so calmly, which shocked Huang Lingyao and made her extremely jealous of Su Fang. Even in the eyes that looked at Su Fang, there was a hidden killing intent that was hard to detect. Obviously, he had the intention to kill Su Fang and steal his treasures. However, out of fear of Su Fang, he didn't dare to make a rash decision. Su Fang asked Goli, "Goli, are we about to reach the Yin-Yang Heavenly Wheel?" Goli hurriedly replied, "At normal speed and without any delays on the way, we can reach the Yin-Yang Heavenly Wheel in at most 50 years. Very good." As Su Fang nodded, his cold eyes swept over Huang Lingyao, as if he could see through her heart. Xianming Sect Master, in front of the enemy, it's better to concentrate on fighting the enemy. Don't have any other thoughts. Huang Lingyao's heart trembled. She felt like she was naked under Su Fang's gaze. Only then did she realize that this big goblin, Yuan Li, was a powerful existence who could kill Dongsha Masheng. If she wanted to covet his treasures, she had to weigh her own strength first. The three of them flew at a low altitude above the Nether River. In order to maintain their peak state to deal with the upcoming battle, Su Fang and Huang Lingyao were flying while devouring pills and spiritual items. Their speed was not very fast. Suddenly buzz, buzz. An extremely ethereal aura swept past Su Fang, causing the Tao runes of the life-shrinking technique in the depths of his mind to flicker rapidly. In the Ninth Underworld, only the experts of the Tao Defiance Alliance can sense my destiny aura. Moreover, the ability to sense it is so ethereal. This person is definitely a Supreme Venerable. The Supreme Venerable of the Tao Defiance Alliance has really come. Su Fang's divine light suddenly changed, and he stopped in an instant. Huang Lingyao asked in surprise, "Yuan Li, what's the matter?" Su Fang was about to answer when two more ethereal sensing forces caused the Tao runes of destiny to move again. Oh no, three Supreme Venerable Emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance have discovered me. Su Fang's body exuded waves of coldness. If he was facing an Supreme Venerable, Su Fang was confident that he could suppress him with his second primordial spirit, ancestral demon blood plate, and origin sacred mirror. But now, three Supreme Venerable Emperors had appeared all of a sudden. His chances of winning were almost zero. The only thing he could do was to run for his life. The three Supreme Venerable Emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance have discovered us. Quickly enter this sovereign's artifact space. This sovereign will take you to escape. Su Fang transmitted his voice to Huang Lingyao, and Yuan Li through his primordial spirit. Three Supreme Venerable Emperors? Goli was scared out of his wits. Supreme Venerable Emperors were at the same level as underworld sovereigns. In Goli's mind, they were supreme existences. Even though the Supreme Venerable Emperor's strength would be suppressed to a certain extent in the Ninth Underworld, an underworld judge like him was no different from an ant when facing Supreme Venerable Emperors. How could he not be afraid when facing three Supreme Venerable Emperors at once? Are you so sure? Huang Lingyao pushed his sensing ability to the limit, but he couldn't sense any aura. He couldn't help but feel puzzled. They'll arrive in an instant. If we hesitate any longer, we won't be able to escape. Su Fang snorted coldly. If they were in the natural world, supreme venerable emperors would be able to travel through the planes of the god realm with a single thought as long as they were within his sensing range. Even though the supreme venerable emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance were restrained in the ninth underworld, their speed was still astonishing. They would probably arrive in a dozen breaths of time. Huang Lingyao and Goli didn't hesitate any longer. They allowed Su Fang to activate the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda to release its divine power and suck them into a formation in the magic treasure's internal space. Then, Su Fang took out the Infinity Chariot, activated it, and jumped on it. As soon as he did all this, Su Fang's perfect realm ability sensed 3 extremely ethereal auras coming from different directions at lightning speed. Su Fang, surrender obediently. Maybe the Alliance Master will spare your life, and even grant you immortality. A proud and arrogant voice sounded in Su Fang's ears. Swish, swish, swish. 3 figures arrived in an instant and appeared in the sky above Su Fang. Sure enough, there were 3 supreme venerable emperors. 2 of them were cultivators, and one of them was a supreme venerable white ape, who had reached the height of a supreme venerable demon race great saint. There wasn't the slightest bit of death chi or evil chi from them. Obviously, they had cultivated the descendant life reversal scripture, reversed life and death, and obtained limitless vitality. The 3 supreme venerable emperors surrounded Su Fang from 3 different directions. All of them had smiles on their faces, and they looked at Su Fang as if they were looking at prey that had fallen into a trap. The evil Lord Tian Du wanted to kill Su Fang, but he died at my hands. Dongsha Moshing wanted to kill me, but he died at my hands as well. As for you, you'll end up like them sooner or later. Su Fang sneered domineeringly. Then, he activated the Infinity Chariot. The power of time instantly enveloped the Infinity Chariot, and it flew forward at an astonishing speed that surpassed the limits of time and ignored the distance between them. Even if you have a supreme creation divine artifact like the Infinity Chariot, you can't escape the fate of being suppressed. An old man with a goatee sneered disdainfully. The 3 supreme venerable emperors attacked at almost the same time. Their divine power instantly shackled the space around the Infinity Chariot. Unexpectedly, the Infinity Chariot erupted with its might once more. Its wheels rolled forward, and it emanated supreme divine might that surged forward through history. It actually crushed the shackles in the surroundings and charged out of the 3 supreme venerable emperors' encirclement. The 3 supreme venerable emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance had been too careless. Even though they knew Su Fang possessed the strength to kill a supreme venerable, and they knew that Su Fang could utilize the Infinity Chariot with shocking speed and might, they'd never imagined that Su Fang would actually be able to utilize the Infinity Chariot to such a shocking extent. Su Fang really isn't an ordinary figure. Looks like we'll have to expend some effort. A white-haired young supreme venerable emperor couldn't help but chuckle as he gazed at the direction Su Fang fled, and his tone and expression were filled with the tone of a cat playing with a mouse. I was trapped by the mountain guardians for so long after arriving at the 9th hell, and I've finally escaped with great difficulty. It just so happens that I can play with this ant properly and vent the resentment in my heart. The white-haired ape chuckled coldly as he took a stride forward. He broke through the shackles of the energy of the 9th hell and caused enormous waves to arise on the Nether River. In the blink of an eye, he'd arrived not too far away from Su Fang. Su Fang relied on the divine might of the Violet Chi Dharma spirit to control the Infinity Chariot with all his might, and he swiftly pulled apart the distance between them. Just like that, one pursued while the other fled. In the next moment, over 10 days had passed. They'd fled for an unknown distance, and Su Fang was like an arrow at the end of its flight. There was an expanse of ice ahead, and it was the sovereign realm of the sovereign realm that Su Fang had escaped from not too long ago. When he sensed those 3 supreme venerable emperors, Su Fang had decided to lure them into the sovereign realm of the sovereign realm of the sovereign realm. Even if he couldn't kill them, he could trap them within it. When he arrived at the border of the sovereign realm of the sovereign realm, Su Fang put away the infinity chariot, and then he laughed coldly and disdainfully at the three supreme venerable emperors that were pursuing him. 3 living corpses intend to capture me, Su Fang? How laughable! As soon as he finished speaking, Su Fang's figure flashed as he executed the movement technique of the big goblin, divine arm spirit monkey, and he flashed through layer upon layer of ice and walls. In less than the time for an incense stick to burn, he'd vanished completely. Let me see where you can flee to. The 3 supreme venerable emperors faintly realized that the situation was bad, and they discerned that the sovereign realm of the sovereign realm of the sovereign realm was slightly unusual. However, they were determined to capture Su Fang this time, and they were confident in their strength, so they pursued him fearlessly. As soon as they entered the sovereign realm of 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 the sovereign realm, so how could they find Su Fang? Chapter 2454. Su Fang actually set up a trap here. How can there be such a powerful illusion in the 9th underworld? Su Fang must be in this illusion as well. Find him, and then kill our way out of this illusion. The 3 emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance were trapped in the illusion puppet world. Only then did they realize that they had fallen into Su Fang's trap. They were shocked and furious, and they roared furiously. At this moment, Su Fang had already activated the illusion breaker chariot and left the illusion puppet world. Without stopping, he put away his magic treasures and flew along the Nether River. Su Fang had no intention of killing these 3 great emperors. With the help of Huan Shen's world and the power of the illusionary shattering south-pointing chariot, he would be satisfied if he could trap these 3 great emperors for some time. Even with the help of the environment and magic treasures, it was impossible to kill all 3 emperors. Su Fang could not afford to waste time. QL11 Moreover, there were 6 emperors. No matter how heaven-defying Su Fang's strength was impossible for him to kill all the emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance. At this moment, in Su Fang's heart, saving his grandfather was much more important than killing the emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance. After leaving the illusion puppet world, Su Fang could no longer hold on, so he directly sank into the depths of the Nether River. Countless nether souls and nether monsters swarmed over when they sensed Su Fang's aura of life. Su Fang immediately released Shroud's clone. Although Shroud's clone had lost the strength of an emperor, he still had the terrifying aura of the Lord of 10 Underworlds, so the nether souls and nether monsters fled in fear. After that, Su Fang obtained the Heaven Supervisor token and set up a formation in the depths of the Nether River to isolate the river. In order to prevent the emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance from discovering him, Su Fang fused the power of destiny released by the life-shrinking technique rune within the formation. In this way, the emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance would not be able to discover his track. After doing all this, Su Fang sat cross-legged in the middle of the formation. After forming a seal, he transformed into the blue sky underworld state. He wantonly devoured medicinal pills and spiritual items to recover the huge consumption this time. He was not willing to use the soul marrow milk. This kind of natural treasure was too rare. Every drop he used was 1 drop less. In the battle with the Sky Wheel Master, 1 more drop of soul marrow milk might increase his chances of winning. Naturally, Su Fang had to use it sparingly. At the same time, he condensed his true body in the blood and thought of a solution. The only way now is to kill our way into the Yin-Yang Heavenly Wheel and kill the Lord of the Heavenly Wheel as quickly as possible before the other Emperor Realm experts of the Tao Defiance Alliance find us, rescue Grandfather, and then swiftly leave the 9th Hell. Thinking of this, a peerless domineering aura and sharp killing intent swept out in an instant. It was as if the formation was sealed in ice. Although the decision had been made, Su Fang still had to plan carefully. At this time, Mystery's doppelganger could no longer display the strength of a venerable emperor. Su Fang could only rely on the power of his magic weapon. His greatest reliance was the Origin Sacred Mirror and the ancestral Fiend Blood Plate. The primordial spirit of the Sky Wheel Master was extremely powerful. Su Fang estimated that it was only slightly inferior to the supreme existence of the imperial people. In the upcoming battle, his second primordial spirit and the ancestral Fiend Blood Plate would be more useful than the Heaven Supervisor Token, Prison Suppressing Codex, Universe Chariot, Xianwang Six Paths Pagoda, and other magic weapons. After checking all the magic weapons, Su Fang felt a little more confident. Then, he took out the Origin Sacred Mirror and released his Yang Qi and consciousness. 3 days later, Shu Wanjin's voice came faintly along with the cold aura. Su Fang, we haven't contacted each other for a long time. If you didn't encounter any danger, you wouldn't have taken the initiative to contact me. Tell me, what trouble have you encountered? As expected of someone who had watched Su Fang grow up, Shu Wanjin immediately guessed Su Fang's thoughts. Su Fang told Shu Wanjin about the dangers he had encountered in the 9th underworld and his plan to come down. Shu Wanjin was silent for a moment before she said faintly, "There are so many venerable sovereigns and an extremely powerful primordial spirit, the Sky Wheel Master, whose strength is unfathomable. This is far beyond the limits of your strength. Su Fang, the situation you're facing now is equivalent to certain death. Do you really want to make this decision? Senior sister, you should know that with my character, I won't change my mind once I've made up my mind. Moreover, I have a faint premonition that although the trip to the Sky Wheel of Yin Yang this time is extremely dangerous, it also contains a huge opportunity and fortune. Perhaps I can break through the shackles of the Tao Integration Realm in one go and advance to the Lord God Realm. Since you've already made up your mind, I won't persuade you anymore. I'm very pleased with your decision. Cultivators have to be daring and brave. Even if you know that the road ahead is covered with thorns, you still have to forge ahead. It's also because you have such a cultivator's heart that you can reach such astonishing heights in just a short period of 300,000 years. If you're afraid of danger and give up on rescuing your family, I might look down on you. This is all because of Senior Sister's teachings. Senior Sister, when you were trapped in the Advent Palace, I couldn't rescue you. Instead, I had to rely on Senior Sister's help time and time again. This makes me feel rather ashamed. I've stayed in the Advent Palace for so many years. Why would I care about a mere 100,000 years? I've watched you grow up. Moreover, you're my father's disciple. You and I have been family for a long time. When you're in danger, as your senior sister, I'm willing to help. What's there to be ashamed of? Thank you, senior sister. When we enter the Sky Wheel of Yin Yang and reach the most critical moment, please help me. You and I will perform the 4 appearances transformation and jointly activate the ancient mirror to kill the owner of the Sky Wheel. I'll leave a trace of my primordial spirit consciousness in the space-time center of the Origin Sacred Mirror at all times. I'll be able to take action at any time. He ended the conversation with Shu Wanjin. Su Fang's depleted dermic powers, primordial spirit, and the power of the yin-yang world gradually returned to normal. Su Fang opened his mouth and sucked the blood sky and blood sea into his body. Then, he released Mystery's doppelganger. Go to the Nether River and catch a nether monster. Su Fang sent a thought to Mystery's doppelganger. After Mystery's doppelganger left the array, Su Fang released Huang Lingyao and Go Li from the Xianwang Six Paths Pagoda. Huang Lingyao asked impatiently, "Have we already gotten rid of the 3 emperors from the Tao Defiance Union?" They were in the space inside Su Fang's natal magic treasure and did not know what was happening outside. That's right. Su Fang did not explain further. Then, he looked at Go Li. Go Li, the Xianming sect master and I are about to enter the Sky Wheel of Yin Yang. You've completed your mission as a guide. You can go now. My lord, Goli was reluctant to leave. He really wanted to follow Su Fang. Su Fang was generous, powerful, and kind to his subordinate. Where could he find a master like him? However, Goli also knew that Su Fang would leave the 9 underworlds soon. He was a judge of the Nether River. Once he left the 9 underworlds, he was nothing. It was useless to follow Su Fang. He might as well stay in the Nether River. Goli knelt down and kowtowed to Su Fang. I will never forget my lord's kindness to me. If my lord comes to the 9 underworlds again in the future, I will definitely serve my lord. Su Fang smiled and said, Why would I come to the 9 underworlds again? Goli said, If my lord dies, as long as your soul is not destroyed, I might be able to help my lord through the back door when you reincarnate in the 9 underworlds. Take these pills and get out of here. Su Fang did not know whether to laugh or cry. He took out a storage ring. Within the storage ring, there were 1,000 creation saint pills. Goli was not a big goblin, but a big goblin's soul that had fallen into the reincarnation cycle. After countless years of growth, he had turned into an existence similar to a monster of the nether world. However, he had wisdom. The creation pills contained the innate chaotic chi, which was of great help to his cultivation. Goli took the storage ring and kowtowed to Su Fang 3 times. Then, he passed through the array and left. Su Fang's divine light rolled around Huang Lingyao, and he said in a voice full of killing intent, Let's go to the yin-yang heavenly wheel. As soon as they walked out of the array, Mystery's doppelganger was waiting outside the array with a netherworld monster that looked like a black octopus. It was Huang Lingyao's first time seeing Mystery's doppelganger. When he sensed the latter's aura, his divine light changed instantly. Although Mystery's doppelganger's strength had fallen below the Emperor level, his aura was still extremely shocking. Huang Lingyao had obtained the inheritance of the Dark Underworld Divine Clan, so he naturally felt reverence for Mystery's aura from the bottom of his heart. Huang Lingyao asked Su Fang in shock, Who is he? Just a friend. Su Fang replied indifferently. Then, he transmitted his thoughts to Mystery's doppelganger. Mystery's doppelganger immediately released his aura, forcing the black octopus monster to open its mouth and suck Su Fang, Huang Lingyao, and himself into its stomach space. Then, the octopus monster flowed from the Nether River to the yin-yang heavenly wheel. The Nether River was condensed from dark underworld energy, and it had the ability to isolate detection. Moreover, there were countless nether souls and netherworld monsters in the river. Su Fang and Huang Lingyao were hiding in the netherworld monster's body space. The emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance would never have thought that Su Fang could travel unimpeded in the Nether River in this way. About 50 years. He was not far from the yin-yang heavenly wheel that Goli had mentioned. Su Fang, Huang Lingyao, and Mystery's doppelgangers came out from the space inside the octopus monster's belly. After releasing the octopus monster, Su Fang stared at Mystery's doppelganger. Mystery, I know that you have a certain level of consciousness now. You should be able to understand my words. Ghostly's doppelganger looked at Su Fang blankly. Huang Lingyao was puzzled by Su Fang's actions, but she didn't say anything. Su Fang continued, Next, I'll be facing a life and death battle, so I've decided to give you freedom and allow you to be free in the 9th underworld. Perhaps one day, you'll be able to become a supreme ruler of the netherworld just like your true body. Are you willing? A wisp of light flashed in the dull eyes of Mystery's doppelganger, and a vague voice came out of his mouth. Yes. Then, with a flash, Netherworld's clone disappeared into the Nether River. It was very difficult to find the 9 Nether Embryo Stone in the 9th underworld, so Mystery's doppelganger lost its use. Mystery's doppelganger made several moves to resolve Su Fang's life and death crises. Chapter 2455. Su Fang and Huang Lingyao continued to move forward in the Nether River. About a year later, an invisible suction force forced them to speed up. The further they went, the more the Nether River changed. From the water state, it gradually turned into the mist-like power of the underworld. The underworld souls and underworld monsters floating in the Nether River were revealed as the Nether River disappeared. They were attracted by an invisible force and surged forward. Su Fang and Huang Lingyao used their divine power to stabilize their bodies and looked forward. An incomparably spectacular scene appeared in front of them. Thousands of miles ahead, the mist formed by the power of the underworld and the boundless underworld souls were distorted by an astonishing power of the way of the heavens. They spiraled and surged, forming a huge and boundless vortex. In the center of the vortex, a huge millstone that was thousands of miles long floated. The top half of the millstone was white, and the bottom half was black. Countless long chains, one end of which was fixed to the millstone while the other end was bound to a soul shadow. Countless souls gathered together to form a dense sea, pulling the millstone slowly to turn. The yin-yang heavenly wheel. Thousands of souls pulled the yin-yang heavenly wheel and rotated the nether samsara. How spectacular was this scene! The underworld souls flowing from the Nether River, as well as the souls that were constantly transmitted from the samsara stage, were attracted by the power released by the rotating millstone. They fell from the sky and were sucked into the millstone's eye. The millstone rumbled as it rotated, crushing those souls into powder, turning them into soul power that flowed down from the millstone. Below the huge millstone, there was a huge altar like a mountain. On the altar, there were countless black-clothed people sitting cross-legged, absorbing the soul power that was refined by the yin-yang heavenly wheel. Such a scene shocked Su Fang and Huang Lingyao. QL11 The soul was the highest origin of a person. It represented a person's ultimate consciousness and was also the life imprint of a person's existence. The primordial spirit of a cultivator was the body of the soul that the cultivator cultivated. Even if the primordial spirit was destroyed, as long as the soul was still there, it could be reincarnated. Someone actually used the yin-yang heavenly wheel to refine the souls that entered the Nether River, which meant that these souls had completely lost the chance to be reborn and were reduced to cultivation materials. Such an evil and terrifying act was really outrageous. Su Fang asked Huang Lingyao in horror. The Lord of the Heavenly Wheel actually controlled the yin-yang heavenly wheel, blocking the reincarnation of life and death, and using the soul power to cultivate. Who is this person, and how can he have such evil means? Have you ever heard of this person and this kind of cultivation method? Huang Lingyao's face, he shook his head and said, "There is no record of this kind in the inheritance of the underworld divine race." Obviously, after the underworld was broken, an evil existence sneaked into the underworld and controlled the yin-yang heavenly wheel and absorbed the reincarnated souls to cultivate. After the yin-yang underworld was destroyed, after the yin-yang place. No matter who the owner of this sky wheel is, he deserves to be killed for his actions. Flames burned in Su Fang's eyes as a fierce murderous aura soared to the sky. Huang Lingyao said coldly. He blocked the reincarnation cycle and cultivated with his soul. This sect master can't do anything about it, nor do I want to do anything about it. However, he dared to shackle this sect master's loved ones. This sect master must kill him. Su Fang shouted at the yin-yang heavenly wheel, "Lord of the heavenly wheel, come out." His voice echoed in the space enveloped by the power of the yin-yang heavenly wheel, causing countless souls that were pulling the yin-yang heavenly wheel to stop for a while and look at Su Fang. Su Fang felt like a torrent was hitting his divine aperture. Even with the power of his primordial spirit, his divine aperture was also shaken, and his body swayed slightly. Huang Lingyao's face turned pale in an instant and he staggered. Whoosh! A figure flew out from the altar below the yin-yang heavenly wheel. After rising into the air, he stood in the air nearly 10,000 miles away from Su Fang. Lord of the heavenly wheel? Su Fang scanned the person with his perfect eyesight. It was an old man with snow-white hair. He was wearing a black robe with countless mysterious heavenly marks. It gave people the feeling that countless souls were sealed in the black robe. Su Fang glanced at him, and the screams of countless wronged souls immediately sounded in his mind. The old man's eyes were deep and cold, as if they contained a world. There was no trace of human emotion. Looking carefully, there seemed to be countless souls floating in the world of his eyes. This person's aura was empty, and there was no trace of life. Obviously, he was not a living body. However, his body contained the terrifying power of the primordial spirit. Su Fang estimated that even the second primordial spirit could not be compared with him. This person was mainly a primordial spirit, and the power of the primordial spirit condensed into a wonderful primordial spirit body. The Lord of the Heavenly Wheel's empty eyes swept over Su Fang and Huang Lingyao, making them feel the pressure of the vast primordial spirit. Their bodies shook at the same time, and Huang Lingyao almost could not stand still. The Lord of the Heavenly Wheel said majestically, "Two ants, you are finally here. I can't wait any longer. If you don't show up, I will directly obliterate these two insignificant souls." Su Fang said coldly, "You shackled me and the Xianming sect master's family not just because we killed your subordinate, the red spider lilies, right? What are your intentions? Just say it." The Lord of the Heavenly Wheel laughed and said, "You human are really extraordinary. You can see my intentions at a glance. It seems that I have a lot less to worry about. I don't need to waste too much time talking." Su Fang's heart skipped a beat. He did not expect the Lord of the Heavenly Wheel's eyesight to be so sharp that he could see through his demon shape-shifting technique disguise and see through his real body. Human? Huang Lingyao looked at Su Fang in surprise. However, in the face of a powerful enemy, even if he was full of doubts, it was not good to ask anything. The Lord of the Heavenly Wheel continued, "I control the heavenly wheel of yin and yang, which is equal to controlling the reincarnation of life and death. I have become the supreme existence that controls all lives in the heavens. At this time, heaven and earth have changed, and the reincarnation of the 9 underworlds has collapsed. I want to recultivate the reincarnation and control the way of heaven, so I need to recruit a large number of masters." Su Fang said indifferently, "So you like us and want to make us your slaves?" "Yes. You and the successor of the divine race of dark underworld are just right for my requirement. As long as you are willing to be loyal to me, not only can your family escape the torture and be reincarnated, but you will also be granted immortality by me. When I become the master of all worlds, you will all be peerless figures second only to me and above all others." The Lord of the Heavenly Wheel said slowly, and his voice was full of enchantment. Su Fang smiled coldly and said, "Your conditions are really very tempting. It's a pity that I am not so ambitious and don't want to be granted immortality. How about this? You release the souls of my friends and my family, and I will immediately turn around and leave. I will never make things difficult for you. You have so many souls in your hands, and you don't care about 1 or 2 less. Humph. I thought you were a smart person, but I didn't expect you to be so stubborn. In this case, I will make you kneel in front of me and beg." The Lord of the Heavenly Wheel said domineeringly, and then waved his arm. The 2 long chains on the heavenly wheel of yin and yang suddenly rolled up and flew above the heavenly wheel of yin and yang. At one end of the chains were 2 souls. One was the shadow of a white-haired hunchbacked old man, and the other was a woman. They were Su Fang's grandfather and Huang Lingyao's sister, Shui Wuing. Because they had been tortured in the heavenly wheel of yin and yang for too long, and both of them were mortals, they looked muddle-headed at this time. It was obvious that they did not have much self-consciousness left. "Grandpa!" There was a boom in Su Fang's head, and a thunderous roar came out, shaking the heavenly wheel of yin and yang. Huang Lingyao burst out with a thunderous shout, "Lord of the Heavenly Wheel, release my sister, or I will fight you to the death." Su Fang also gnashed his teeth. "Lord of the Heavenly Wheel, you are digging your own grave by doing this. If my grandpa's soul is damaged in the slightest, I will definitely refine your soul forever and make you suffer a fate worse than death." The Lord of the Heavenly Wheel smiled gloomily and made a strange hand gesture. Under the souls of Su Fang's grandfather and Shui Wuing, a black substance about 1,000 feet in size quickly condensed, floating at a height of 10,000 feet above the heavenly wheel of yin and yang. The Lord of the Heavenly Wheel sneered ferociously. "I have been in the heavenly wheel of yin and yang for too long, and it is really boring. Today, I will simply play a game with you two humans." Su Fang shouted, "Lord of the Heavenly Wheel, what are you doing?" The Lord of the Heavenly Wheel said in a cold and embarrassed voice, "I will give you 6 hours. As long as you can break the defense of the heavenly wheel of yin and yang, you can save the souls of your loved ones. If you can't do it within 6 hours, the souls of your loved ones will be crushed by the heavenly wheel of yin and yang, and become the cultivation materials for me and my subordinates. Now let's begin." As soon as the Lord of the Heavenly Wheel's cold voice fell, the souls of Su Fang's grandfather and Shui Wuing, together with the substance under them, slowly descended to the heavenly wheel of yin and yang below. "Lord of the Heavenly Wheel, you are courting death." Su Fang stepped out and displayed the body movement of the holy arm spirit monkey to the extreme. His whole body was burning with amazing demonic fire, and like a fire meteor, he flew across the sky and pounced on the heavenly wheel of yin and yang. Above Huang Lingyao's head, a nether moon appeared, emitting gloomy and cold moonlight. As the moonlight shone, his figure instantly moved out, and his speed was even faster than Su Fang's. Rumble! 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 The heavenly wheel of yin and yang began to operate, triggering the terrifying power of samsara. Countless souls in the sky swept out, and under the influence of the heavenly wheel of yin and yang, they spiraled and whistled, turning into circles of black storms, forming layers of barriers between the heavenly wheel of yin and yang and Su Fang and Huang Lingyao. The monstrous black storm swept over, and the roaring souls collided with Su Fang and Huang Lingyao, causing a big explosion. Su Fang and Huang Lingyao seemed to be caught in the storm. Their speed was limited, and their divine apertures were also under fierce impact. Universe Car.